good, or you wouldn't be here. And probably three of them, you think it's one of the, probably the best case we'll have had this year, if not this decade. And I'll admit there are two or three on the agenda that I'm really excited about, and I know the city is as well. But I will do my part to try to move things along. I promise not to tell any jokes or any stories or recount any history. One advantage of hair this color, you have memory, you have history. But we don't want to be here until 11 o'clock. We have new microphones. Now, is mine on? No. Some people tell me I don't need a microphone. Okay. But this meeting is supposed to be live streamed on the city's website, yorkcity.org. And I'm not sure if our audience consists of 3 or 4 people, or 3 or 4 dozen, or 3 or 400. But even if it's only 3 or 4 people, if they cared enough to tune in, they should be able to hear us. So I'd like to remind everybody to please have your microphone on, at least when you speak. And if you just leave it on, I mean, if anybody belches or hiccups or anything, we'll forgive it. I'm going to skip, because I think there are some familiar faces here. You may have been through this before. You were at the Planning Commission perhaps a week and a half ago. As our solicitor will tell us when he introduces the case, we have the recommendation of the staff, the zoning officer, and we have the recommendation of the Planning Commission, and we value both. But we do make up our own minds. So if you thought you didn't do very well at the Planning Commission, maybe you'll do better here. Or it may go the other way around. Or oftentimes we agree with them. We'll start the case, and I want to try it a little bit differently this evening. Usually for some long time we've been starting with, you will come to the podium and I ask you to tell us in your own words what you would like to do with the property, what you need, but that nobody ever ought to tell me that, because half an hour later they'll regret it. And some people do take a little bit longer than necessary, and we have printed material. I hope some of us are watching the Planning Commission meeting. It helps me a lot, especially if no city employee forgets and turns the camera off. It wasn't Monty, it was Nancy. So for an hour we were treated to a picture of her computer screen, her laptop screen. I bet she won't do that again. Just a couple of recognitions. We're joined this evening by Nona Watson, our Director of Economic and Community Development, and we're also joined by Teresa Jonescu, one of our council members. And I wouldn't be surprised if before the evening is over if we're joined by another council member, Elsbeth Bupp. She was our vice chair here up until January 1st or December 31st, and I know that she still follows with avid interest what goes on here. Also, we are joined this evening, and it gives me more pleasure than you know to announce that we will be joined this evening. Corey, do you want to come up, please? Because you're like Diana was saying on January 2nd or 3rd, you're in, after she swore somebody in, you're in. She got a big charge out of that. And Corey, you're in, and welcome. And so we, again, after 3 months, I guess two or 3 months, we have a full board. If you have a cell phone, please turn it either off or to vibrate. I always say we also enjoy the William Tell Overture, but we would rather not hear it during this meeting. When you come up to the podium, please speak up. Don't swallow the microphone, but don't step back 3 or 4 feet away from it. And if your normal speaking is kind of low and quiet, speak up a little bit so everyone in the room can hear you, including me. Will everyone present please stand and raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony here this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Let the record reflect that everyone present was duly sworn. Our solicitor is Andy Harold. I'm sorry, that much I should. No, I forgot all the introductions. I made the first one. Corey Carden, Adam Nugent, Nick Holman, Sina Jenkins. Andy Harold is our solicitor. You know that quickly, I didn't write it down. Our stenographer is Christine Myers. How they do that job, I don't know. But she can only do it if only one person speaks at a time. She can't take down 2 people talking at the same time. So please wait to be recognized. Did I forget anything?
I don't think so.
Don't think so? Okay. Now, we're going to begin with 2 cases, and I think this is the way the agenda reads. We're going to begin by finishing up 2 cases that we had continued from last month. And would you read in the first case, case number?
Sure. The first case continued from last month is case number 4-2024-Z-V. The applicant, excuse me, the applicant and owner of the subject property is, excuse me, Jose Rojas of 2846 A Street, Eureka, California. The subject property is located at 650 West Market Street, which address is located in the UN1 Urban Mixed Residential Commercial Zoning District of the City of York. Applicant seeks a dimensional variance to permit 2 additional apartments at the subject property, which density would exceed that allowed by the City of York zoning ordinance. The application was reviewed by the planning staff of the City of York. The planning staff recommends approval of the requested variance. The case was heard by the Planning Commission of the City of York on January 12th, 2024. By way of unanimous vote, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the requested variance. The record before the board this evening consists of the application itself, the deed to the subject property, an aerial photo of the subject property, 2 sketch floor plans, and 2 pages of photos of the subject property. And it looks like that record has been supplemented by 2 additional floor plans, hand-drawn floor plans.
I think, Monty, I think this case was at the Planning Commission.
Yes.
And did they did they make a recommendation?
Yes, they recommended approval.
Okay. Are you Mr.
Rojas? No, sir.
Rojas?
No, sir. I'm a representative for Mr. Rojas.
Are you the gentleman who was here last month?
No, sir.
No? He's got a number of representatives?
I'm here today for him.
You're
sir.
here
Yes.
today for him, all right.
What's your name, sir?
My name is Keenan Kears.
Could you spell that, please?
Yes, Keenan. Last name Kears. Kearse.
Just quickly, is there anyone else who's here specifically for this case or has any interest in this case? Okay, thank you.
Okay, the building, as I recall, were you going to say something?
Nope.
As I recall, the building is occupied by a second floor apartment and a third floor apartment.
Yes.
So, and those are not the subject of our meeting. They have been approved sometime in the past, and Mr. Rojas has found difficulty in renting to a long-term commercial tenant on the first floor. I believe that was indicated to us last month.
Is that a question?
I'm sorry?
Were you asking me a question?
Well, I mean, does that jive with your understanding, if you're his representative?
No, sir.
And so he would like to convert the first floor from commercial to 2 apartments.
Yes, sir.
That's what he would like to do. And the drawing that was submitted last month, I just couldn't make sense of. And I don't believe anyone else could. So we have a new drawing. I'm not sure we even have it. Did we have a drawing last month?
Yes,
Well, that's a photo. That? Yeah, okay. We didn't have a drawing. Now, this drawing, I guess, that was I'm still having trouble finding two apartments. Has anyone else?
These two pictures here, I think, are the 2 apartments. It's basically a hand drawing of 2 studio-sized apartments because one has a corner bathroom and the other one has another corner bathroom, but opposite corner. And you can see there's a small kitchen next to the one bathroom, and then there's a kitchen across from the other bathroom. So it's hard to understand them, but I think that's what we're getting here is one is 192 square feet, and the other one is 300 square feet.
Well, I didn't
Correct
get,
on that?
Correct.
Okay.
I did not get,
Yeah, they were on our table.
Yeah, but ours are the same. I have 2 exactly the same. I have 2 of the 300 square foot ones.
oh, you have 2 of the 300?
Yeah.
Could I have one of
Yeah,
them?
you might have
Let's
mixed it
swap,
up.
and
he
now
got
we
mixed
have a
up.
set.
Now we're cooking.
Now we got it. So one's titled Front Studio and the other one's titled Studio Apartment.
Yes.
So that's kind of what we asked for last time, was give us some direction of what this thing looks like, because the pictures that were involved just didn't have it. It appears that the package also included, some improved, photographs. It appears that the work is pretty much getting done to apartments.
As far as I know, they have already been, they was already there.
Yeah. It was. Yeah, we got told a little differently that it was a commercial process, that this was like being put in. Yeah.
I'm not sure of that part.
And we weren't sure you even got approval yet to do it, because that's why you're coming here. Can you state for the record actually what happened?
From what I believe is, he started the work and I guess got caught, and they told him he had to go through the zoning process and everything, and then that's when he started doing the zoning process and everything. But I didn't know how far along the apartments were at that time or anything like that.
And the owner lives in California, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So that's kind of synopsis of what we do. I don't remember anything about the commercial that you were talking about, Mr. Chairman, about commercial, he couldn't find any tenants and all that. I don't remember that before.
I pretty clearly do. I don't know if it was part of the written record or some of the material that was originally distributed to us is practically illegible. But I had that idea somewhere, and it kind of rang a bell with me because somebody asked me over the weekend, why did the businesses fail? And I said, probably for one or more of several reasons, because the 600 block is just dying out commercially. It's just a fact. I don't know if it can be brought back, but anyway.
For the record there, Mr. Chair, that's the original package. And if you remember, this is the package that had a bunch of
Yeah.
links. There was no information in it about the links that were sent to us. We had no ability to get the off the document.
So our existing packet has not much information. I believe we're working off of these two documents here that are,
Right. And then this new
are the
package,
blueprints. So yeah, that's
and then this section.
where we stand.
Does anybody else have any questions for the gentleman?
How far is the work done? It's completed?
It's cosmetically, maybe painting, stuff like that. Nothing major.
Well, if we approve this conversion, I presume that it will be inspected.
Yes, it will be inspected, and as I stated on the phone to Mr. Rojas, when he first put the application stuff in, he had to meet certain square feet. So if he doesn't meet the square feet, he is not going to be able to rent these apartments because he will not pass inspection. So if the apartments don't match the square feet for a single bedroom or a two bedroom, they will not be able to be rented because they will not pass inspection.
I'm not sure I'd bet much money on some of his numbers, but at least he complied with the request to give us sketches.
I'm ready to make a motion if you want to.
Go for it.
Based on what the evidence we have here and what we asked for, I believe, and it's not our job to approve it as the square footage. I move to approve a dimensional variance to convert the first floor commercial space into 2 units as defined in section 1304. I should probably turn my mic on. Sorry. Start over again. On case number 4-2024-Z-Victor at the property at 650 West Market Street, I move to approve a dimensional variance to convert the first floor commercial space into 2 units as defined in section 1304.01-1.02.002 B4 at that address in the UN1 zoning district.
I'll second. Aye. I'll second that. Any comments or questions, amendments? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the variance, the dimensional variance for the property at 650 West Market Street. Taking the vote, Mr. Corden?
He should not, he was not present last month, so because he did not hear the testimony of last month, I would recommend that he not take part in this vote.
And that vote?
Yep.
Okay. He didn't miss much, but.
No, fair enough.
All right, all right. Mr. Nugent?
Nay.
Nugent, nay. Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins?
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye. Okay, we approved that conversion. I wish I had thought a little bit sooner. I guess there was, the parking, there was no mention of parking anywhere, and yet we just added 2 apartments.
He has adequate parking behind the property.
Adequate?
Yes, it goes all the way back to Mason Alley.
Okay, thank you, good. Okay, it's approved. You can finish up the work and then ask to have the first floor inspected.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Number 7.
7?
7, please.
The next case this evening is case number 7-2024-Z-V/SE. The applicant and owner of the subject property is GSF Properties of 1300 East Market Street, York, Pennsylvania, 17403. The subject property is located at 1215 East Market Street, which address is located in the UN1 Urban Mixed Residential Commercial Zoning District of the City of York. Applicant seeks several variances and a special exception to permit the use of the subject property as a rooming house. First, the applicant seeks a variance. I'm sorry. Is this the one that? Yeah. So actually, it's just variances, I believe. Applicant seeks several variances to permit the use of the subject property as a rooming house. First, the applicant seeks a variance to permit a rooming house in which the owner does not reside at the property. Next, the applicant seeks a variance to permit rental rooms which are less than 250 square feet in size. Monty, is this the one that we had, or is this one correct? Is this the special exception?
No, there's actually 4 items.
No, that's 477.
I'm sorry?
The one for the special exception? No, that's.
The variance review I have, it's correct, except we added a variance number 3.
Oh yeah, the special
Okay.
exception was down. It was the
Yeah,
variance on the number of units, I think,
Okay.
that they didn't do last time.
Okay. So those 2 variances, and then there is a request for a variance to permit up to 16 rooms, which density or which number exceeds the allowable number of rooms in a rooming house. Finally, this applicant seeks a special exception to permit a rooming house, which use is permitted by special exception in the UN1 zone. The application was reviewed by the planning staff of the City of York. The planning staff recommends denial of the requested variance to waive the requirements that a rooming house be owner occupied. The planning staff recommends approval of the requested variance to permit rental rooms smaller than 250 square feet in size. What were the recommendations on this, Monty, for the 16 rooms?
One, the city was against it because, you know, of course, with rooming houses, we want the owner to live there, so we have some kind of regulations and somebody to hold accountable for the rooms. But the rooming house being that many rooms, I haven't seen no case come past to even ask for that many, so we were just stuck in the dark just like everybody else, and we're just against it because of the size of the building, how the building looks and everything. We believe it can be purposely used in a different way that's better suit for the city.
Okay. The record this evening before the board consists of the application itself, a 3-page narrative, a standard agreement of sale of real estate, an aerial photo of the subject property, floor plans of the subject property, 2 pages of photos of the subject property, the deed to the subject property, I'm sorry, and floor plans of the subject property and 2 pages of the subject property. I apologize.
Would you give your names for the stenographer, please?
Cody Godfrey.
Derek Shaw.
I'm not sure how in depth you guys would like us to go since we were just here last month, but kind of to just reiterate, looking to put an upscale rooming house at 1215 East Market Street. Derek and I own 3 rooming houses on Market Street right now, and they're all in more upscale rooming house, you know, quality finishes. We provide them with beds, dressers, cable TV, Wi-Fi. You know, everything's provided for them. Last month when we were here, we asked for 18 rooms. We did discuss, and we're willing to reduce that to 16 rooms. Try to give some common space for all the tenants. I printed off some pictures of 1300 East Market Street. Start with you. So I only printed off 1 copy. So this is kind of the property that we're trying to mimic.
Was this property at 1300, was it previously some sort of rooming house or tourist home or something?
It used to be a doctor's office.
A doctor's office,
Converted to 15 rooms. That is on the Spring Garden side. But you could literally throw stone between these 2 buildings.
Is anyone here specifically for this piece? You said there has been room, it has been converted to several rooms. I'm sorry if you mentioned.
That one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
this is a different.
Yes. We're just showing this as an example of what we're trying to turn 1215 into. Yeah.
They brought these pictures in because they wanted to show us what they would like 1215 to become, but it's a work in progress, right?
It is.
And so if you're approved here this evening, then you will go through with the contract for purchase,
Correct.
for sales?
The rooming houses obviously get a bad rep, but I'm hoping to prove to you guys with these pictures that we run a tight ship. We're professional property managers for a living. We visit these properties at least once a week. You know, we're very hands-on, so yes, we won't owner occupy it, but we'll be there often. We'll be extremely active with the tenants. We handle everything ourselves.
You mentioned more than one, you already own and operate more than one in that neighborhood, in that vicinity?
Correct.
What is your occupancy rate in those homes?
100%.
At all times.
Yeah.
At all times. We get 5 to 10 calls a week at minimum for these rooms, and everyone wants that location. The bus stop's right there. It's a clean area. Like, people don't want to live downtown. You know, it's a clean area. Bus is there.
And I'm sure there's bus transportation on Market Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I raised a concern about the parking, because any rooming house, there's a standard parking requirement of 4 spaces. I guess when they wrote that, they didn't envision sort of a Taj Mahal of rooming houses with 16 rooms. But you indicated that previously that you're sure you have more than 4 spaces off street.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, we have more than a dozen.
They have a large parking lot in the back of the house. To bring us up to speed, the reason we postponed it for 1 month was to let the public know that the potential of a 16-room house was going to be proposed. And
Sure.
we got you to put in a new a variance, the third variance there, that increased the number of rental rooms from a maximum of 6 to 16, because that was not in there. And I think we all were pretty, speaking as pretty close to being okay with this, because it does look like it was a well put together plan. The size of the rooms for the extra 2 going to 18 were really tiny, so we were against that. But I thought the board was pretty close to being approval for it. We just didn't want to have another issue with the zoning board approving something and the public didn't know about it.
Sure.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I'm still a little concerned about the idea of having a 16-room boarding house when you've got sort of a property that currently is built for a commercial purpose, and there really hasn't been a ton of time that's gone by that has proven that it can't be used for that purpose. So, when Monty says the city's a little bit worried about boarding houses coming into town, and we're talking about throwing 16 rooms in a single boarding house, that's concerning to me. So just to clear that up, it's in my mind, sounds like it's something that's going a step beyond what we need at this point.
Sure. I understand what you're saying. I brought the pictures in. I'm trying to show you what like a 15-unit rooming house can and should look like, as long as it's run correctly. And
So the one that you're proposing, you're saying that it's going to mimic this one that you gave us
it's
pictures
not
of?
going to look like it to a T, but yes, that is what we are planning to mimic. That location, extremely clean. We provide beds, dressers, cable TV, Wi-Fi, kitchens, everything. So that is exactly what 1215 East Market Street would mimic.
And I don't know how the advertising works, but any neighbor with 1215 would be any neighbor with that property. So anyone who doesn't like that property would be here to argue against it.
I'd like to add too, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't, and I've told you, I'm impressed with you guys, but you are kind of standing on the shoulders of someone, and you had to, my understanding is you had to persuade, was his name Bill Price?
Yep.
Who owned and operated 5 or 6 rooming houses.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to find people who would continue his standards. He was pretty strict, no nonsense. He said, I do what I should for my tenants and I expect them to follow the rules. And so you didn't create in a matter of months what you have going here. You're kind of standing on his shoulders.
Yep.
And getting a head start with it.
We are.
Yes. Would you come to the podium, please?
Please state your name and
Regalo Willoughby.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Regalo Willoughby.
Could you spell that, please?
Regalo. Last name Willoughby. Much obliged. You indicated it was a commercial property before, and it's being converted to a rooming house. Would it be considered in the R2 zoning or R3?
This is in the UN1 zone.
As far as when it goes to changing it, putting in like the needed safety things like the suppressing devices.
That's all going to be through the codes department. That's not really what we're here to deal with. That's going to be for the inspection purposes. They're going to have to meet all codes and things like that.
Monty, do you know what the code is for rooming house? Are they going to need fire suppression?
That's another problem we're running into, because normally with rooming houses, they have to be single-family houses. They fall under single family and get inspected as single family. And then with this being so big of a building, that's going to create a lot of problems with the inspection and everything. So I don't know how they're going to categorize it.
Are there fire suppression in the current 15 unit property that you have? The one that.
No, there is now.
Gotcha. Okay.
That was my second question, because I had the same situation occur. And I want to see if there's some kind of a consistent metrics being imposed, as opposed to is lenient on this side and versus okay on that side. Because generally, from my understanding, single family, 5 to 6. Now you're telling me 15, 16, and so forth without certain situations. I need to understand how is that being, done. Thank you.
I think some of you may recall Mr. Willoughby was before us, 4 or 5 months ago? For a rooming house conversion on the west side, 600 block of West Market Street. I believe he's trying to understand, and I'm not sure I can help him, if the requirements in the 1200 block of East Market Street are more lax or easier than the requirements for fire suppression in the 600 block of West Market Street. Is that kind of where you were? Now, I would have liked to nod, but if you want to speak more, you'll have to come to the podium.
My understanding is that if you are converting to a rooming house of such, there are parameters set in place that if you go over a certain amount, it changes it back into commercial, and you have to have certain metrics met. In addition, it also based on the load estimator. And these are variables I'm trying to understand. If it took me almost 6 months and I was incompliant just with how is it, I won't say easy per se, but how is it almost seamless to have a 14, 15 room and board situation and those metrics not being applied equally? That's my concern.
So the board, I think, is aware that there is no precedence set between cases. So the board is not bound, because they made a particular decision in one case, they're not bound to make the same decision in a case of the same sort. The board is supposed to analyze each case on the facts particular to that case.
But I have the same concerns, so I get it.
That's it from the legal standpoint, but I understand what you're saying.
And I would also say to you that for the board, we have to take what is brought before us and we have to look at each case individually. We have to look at the area that it's being presented to. But at the same time, like this situation, this is going to be new to everybody, including the city when it comes, if it makes it through, when it will come time for inspection. But we have to look at everything in each case individually. So I understand what you're saying about your case, but at the same time, there are some significant different things about their case. So we can't look at your case the same as we would theirs. But we are looking at everything that is presented to us, and that is why we ask the questions that we do before we make any kind of decisions.
Monty, do you think there might be, and I understand we don't really set a precedent from one case to another, but it does seem to me that that all things being equal, the zoning outcome should be pretty similar. Are these? I don't remember what the zoning is in the 600 block of West Market Street, but is there anything you can add to this discussion as to why the 600 block of West Market Street required more, apparently, than...
Well, what I can speak of, the rooming house that they're talking about down the street from here, I do not think is in this city where they do not have sprinkler system. Because
they said that it's in Spring Garden Township.
So that might be the difference, but in the case of the one at 1215, I believe, because as Mr. Willoughby just stated, he has the same situation. He has about 5, and he had to get a sprinkler system. So if a person that has 5 get a sprinkler system, I will believe they will make somebody with 16 rooms get a sprinkler system. But that again, that's a question for the BCO, because that's the inspection side of things. We're just looking at it from a zoning standpoint.
So I'm not trying to just get us out of a situation where we may not be totally up to speed on, but we're being asked to approve, for lack of a better term, a concept, a use. And I guess you have to be prepared for inspectors, property inspectors, to say, well, for this use, even though it was approved by the zoning hearing board, the property standards or requirements, you need to add such and such. It might be fire suppression, or it might be fire escape, or, you know, that's really, I certainly am not qualified to tell you exactly what what you might be found in need of. But I'm sure you're not going to be greatly surprised if you find that you do have to add something when you're inspected.
Are you still working on this property?
We haven't, we're still under contract on the property.
They bought it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm inclined for the sake of the building itself. I mean, let's just start there to keep it how it is until it's proven it can't be used that way.
That is, you know, Mr. Nugent makes a valid point that one of the considerations is whether or not for a variance is whether or not the use, that it can be used in strict conformity with the zoning ordinance. And so he does make a point that is a very valid consideration for the grant of any variance.
And I'm rooting for you guys. I mean, you just bought a bunch of properties, and I think you're going to do a good job with them. I'm just not ready to take a building and chop it up into something that maybe it doesn't need to be chopped up into. That's
Yeah.
where I stand at this
I
point.
understand what you're saying. For the most part, it's already there though. But I certainly understand what you're saying.
Can I ask what that timeline looks like for you?
I don't,
I was just curious.
yeah.
I was just gonna say though, if we go back and look at the original application that with the drawings in it, there isn't a whole lot to be chopped up, as you just mentioned. It is the as is right now. So we're not really changing, or they're not really changing much of the interior. And for us to say we're not the approval body for safety and standards and safety, we are here to approve either the exceptions and the variances or not.
Yes. And so if we get past that topic, we're onto the topic of, do we want a 16-room boarding house, period? And how does that affect other properties? If we did have a concept that was a brand-new concept, and you were showing us something that was beyond, these papers that was saying, this is what we plan on doing, and this is how we plan on using it, and no one's ever seen this concept before, and you had something very interesting, that would be great. This is a standard 16-room, 14-room, whatever room, too many rooms in my head, boarding house that just, it may or may not work, which doesn't, in my mind, it doesn't justify the idea of taking what's supposed to be a boarding house, which is an owner-occupied six resident property, and just expanding that to more than double what it's meant to be.
You've been using the term boarding house, which is not strictly accurate.
Gotcha.
We're not talking
Rooming
boarding
house.
house, we're talking
Yep.
rooming house.
Got it.
You're not, I know what a boarding house was. A little old lady fixed lunch and usually supper and served it at a table to workers from the factory down the street. You're not gonna do that, right? It's basically a sleeping room and hopefully a little bit of amenities in common areas. Is there anything else you think we should know that we don't?
Not sure what else to add, guys.
I don't think so.
And we have 5 rooming houses of this scale, and I think we've proven that we're capable of doing it. I understand you may not have seen it firsthand, but I don't know. We've been doing this on our own for about 3 years, and I can tell you how many calls I've gotten from neighbors, people driving by, etc., of complaints for the residents, and it's been 0. I understand any concerns, but I don't know what else to do to convince you that we can do this.
And how many rooms are, just out of curiosity, how many are at the 1300 location? How many rooms are in there?
15. 1416 East Market Street has 13. 1555 East Market Street has 10.
And those are all licensed?
Those are all licensed. Yep. And we have one on Eastern Boulevard that is 17 rooms. It's also licensed.
Which is right off of East Market Street. Right behind that Rite Aid.
Behind what?
That Rite Aid?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Don't they have to prove hardship when they're coming to file for these cases? I didn't hear anything about any hardship or anything. I was just wondering.
I've never been a great believer in hardship. I think we ought to be working against hardship instead of looking for it. I think, any other questions? I think we understand what's before us. I think we do, whether we like it or not, is what we have to decide. And I have thought from the beginning, and I spoke to this issue on Facebook yesterday, that I thought this property, I expressed what my opinion as of yesterday was that this big beautiful house is never going to be a single family home. I can't imagine. People want new, people want modern. People probably don't want to raise their kids right along Market Street, I'm afraid. I don't see that it would ever again be a single family home. I suppose it could be 4 or 5 two-bedroom apartments, possibly. But these applicants are not interested in going into the apartment business. I think Bill Price was asked the same thing at least once, and said he's not, and he had some logical explanation why. He just didn't want to do apartments. He liked to do rooming houses. And in my view, a well-run, well-maintained rooming house is a good, could be a good part of the solution to the homeless problem.
Who oversees your buildings again?
We do.
We do.
Chairman, are you ready to make a motion?
Is there any more discussion? Because one discussion at point is the gentleman before us have as owners other places literally within 2 blocks of each other. I mean, this place is right down the street. The house that we got these pictures for is right next to Turkey Hill, if I remember right. It's right across the street from Turkey Hill. This house, I passed by it today, is on the other side of the street and right down about 2 blocks or so from there.
Yeah.
And so it's, that area is no longer on East Market Street, a residential address, like you're saying. These big homes are no longer there. There's lawyers in it, there's other organizations. I think there's a couple health places.
There's a fairly large drug recovery program.
Yeah, so what I'm getting at is this may be a good use of this large building, large piece of property that has parking for it. And I'm kind of in favor of just saying the rooming house is not a bad idea for it if it can get approved by all the other inspections it has to go through.
Sure, it's our decision is always subject to, we're not approving the building condition,
Right.
although from the photographs, it certainly looks as though it is.
And some of the things that, the variances that are listed here for this property that they're asking for, I mean, the things that occupied by the owner, they've already proven themselves that they are good custodians of the properties in having 3 or 4 other ones already. So I think that has to be a positive thing. That's a reasoning for approving not having an owner live in this home. They've already proved themselves that way. Larger than 250 square feet. We've already got them to discount 2 of the places because they aren't 250 square feet, and there's a few other ones that are less than that too, but we also have approved less than 250 square feet before. Yes, going from 6 to 16 is a large number. I mean, that is something that is new. We'll just say it that way. But it appears that the zoning board has approved this before with your other properties. So this is not that new. There is 10, and I think you said 15 homes that are right down the street. 13, thank you.
I don't know if I ought to bring up that about 2 or 3 years ago, somebody wanted to reopen a 12-room rooming house in my neighborhood. And I said, this is not a residential thing, this is an institutional thing, 12 rooms. But there are some major differences. I'm more impressed with these guys as owners and operators. The other place in question that I was not in favor of was closed by the city, taking the previous owner to court because the police were called regularly, including once or twice, to remove dead bodies. It didn't appear, as I recall, to have died from natural causes. It was a mess. It was a real mess. And I just didn't have any confidence that if we allowed it to reopen in the same thing, that it would be much different. I have a lot more confident feeling about this proposal.
And not to interrupt, Mr. Chairman, I want to go back to something that was said. You mentioned Facebook.
I'm sorry?
You mentioned Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to turn to the applicants. Just for future reference, board members should not be consulting with those outside sources, either prior to or in between hearings. The MPC allows you to basically contest reference to any type of thing. Do you have any objection? I'm going to basically ask you on the record if you have any objection to Mr. Williams having sort of gone on a Facebook site, or and if you have objection, we can delay this and you can go back and see what he looked at. But do you have any objection at this point to that?
No, sir.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm not paid for this, you know. And I'm certainly not, no pay is not enough pay to give up my right to free speech.
I
said quite a number of things, didn't I? No, I'm sorry, I was going to say. A member of council wrote a very, very good piece about on the subject of well-operated, well-maintained rooming houses being a potentially good part of an overall approach to the homeless problem. And I'm sorry, it just was too inviting. I thought before a bunch of people come in here and show how little they know about the subject, it looked to me like an opportunity to, you know, one reason I'm here is because I've learned so much from being here, I think. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that opportunity. So, any other comments, questions? I'm not sure that I would be willing to make a motion, but I'm not sure that I have all of the number stuff. I would be working from would be from the special exception and variance review. I'm willing. Thank you. Okay, regarding the property at 1215 East Market Street in case number 7-2024-Z-SE-V, I move to approve a variance to the requirement that the owner shall be, that the building shall be owner occupied as defined in section 1304.02-7. Point 17, point B3. Oh, I made my motion. I'll give you a minute to think about it, but I meant to ask our solicitor, since this case is a little bit physically, our handling of this case is similar to the previous one, in that Mr. Carden was not present for what we accomplished or tried to accomplish last month.
Yeah, and I was not at last month's hearing, but my recommendation would be, I don't know how much testimony was taken, but my recommendation would that he not participate in this vote.
Okay. So I move to approve the variance from the requirement that the building be owner occupied.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Williams, seconded by Holman, to approve that variance. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, calling for the vote. Mr. Nugent.
Nay.
Nugent, nay. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye. I move to approve the variance to the requirement that each room must be larger than 250 square feet. Also in case number 7-2024, as defined in section 1304.02-7.17.B1.
Second.
It's been moved by Williams, seconded by Holman, to approve a variance from the requirement for 250 square feet room size. Calling for the vote. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye. Would anyone else like to be heard from?
No, you're doing fine.
Thank you. In the case of 7-2024-Z-SE-V regarding 1215 East Market Street, I move to approve a variance to increase the number of rental rooms from 6 to 16 as defined in section 1304.02 -7.17.B1.
Second.
It's been moved by Williams, seconded by Holman, to approve a variance to the limit to the number of rental rooms up to 16. Calling for the vote, Mr. Nugent.
Nay.
Nugent, nay. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Nay.
Jenkins, nay. And Williams, aye.
That motion fails.
That motion failed. So, do we need to go on to the?
Yes. It would be my recommendation that you go on to the question of the special exception. They would simply not be permitted to have any more than 6 rooms. They could still use it if the special exception is approved. They could still use it as a rooming house with a limit of the number of rooms as required by the ordinance, which I think is 6, right?
Right. In the case, in case number 7-2024-Z-SE-V regarding 1215 East Market Street, I move to approve the special exception to allow the rooming house as defined in section 1304.02-7.17.
Second.
It's been moved by Williams, seconded by Holman, to approve the special exception to allow a rooming house. Calling for the vote, Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Nay.
Jenkins, nay. And Williams, aye. So that motion passes by 3-1. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready?
let's go on with 13.
Number 13 now?
Yes.
That paper you
I
was
don't-
reading,
I'm sorry?
the paper you was reading off of.
That was mine. Can I get back?
Oh. What? Oh, wait. You gotta watch some people.
That's right. Yeah, next case. 800 East.
Mr. Chairman, which one did you say is next?
13.
I was skipped one. It's 800 East Market Street should be the next one. But we kind of went out of order a little bit.
Well, we did, clearing up old business. Okay, what would be next on the printed agenda? 800 East Market Street, case number 5. That'll work.
Because I don't see Joe here anyway. On 13, I don't see Joe here anyway. Joe Musso.
No, I don't either, or Blanda.
Yeah. And that might have been the one. Anyway, okay. The next case is case number 5-2024-Z-V/SE. The applicant is the York Community Resource Center Incorporated, doing business as York Tech Centro of 800 East Market Street, York, Pennsylvania 17403. The owner of the subject property, the subject property is located at 800 East Market Street, which address is located in the UN2 Urban Residential Neighborhood Zoning District of the City of York. Applicant appeals the determination of the City of York Zoning Department that the proposed use of the subject property is an educational facility post-grade 12 or equivalent. Should the zoning hearing board grant the appeal, the applicant then seeks a special exception to permit a community center, which use is permitted by special exception in the UN2 zone. Should the zoning hearing board sustain the zoning officer's determination, then the applicant seeks a special exception to permit an educational facility post-grade 12 or equivalent as a change of use from one non-conforming use to another non-conforming use. In addition, applicant seeks a variance to reduce the required number of off-street parking spaces to 36 spaces. Attorney Kern, have I properly summarized that?
Yes, you have. Thank
Okay,
you.
great, thank you. The application was reviewed by the planning staff of the City of York. The planning staff recommends approval of the requested special exception to permit an educational facility post-grade 12 or equivalent. I suppose it goes without saying that they recommend sustaining their determination. The case was heard by the City of York Planning Commission on March 1st, 2024. By way of unanimous vote, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the requested variance regarding parking, as well as the grant of a special exception to permit an educational facility post-grade 12 or equivalent. Attorney Kern, did they take action on the appeal?
My understanding, excuse me, as I was not directly present that evening, one of my colleagues was that there was really no elaborate discussion regarding our request for consideration of the community center use, as opposed to the educational facility.
Okay.
But we are, in the interest of, the board's time here this evening, should you prefer that we proceed and that the board would like to hear purely our special exception request regarding the educational facility and the parking variance, we are willing to proceed in that manner, as we believe we've outlined our case within the written supplement that was provided with the zoning application regarding the community center use.
Okay. The record before the board this evening consists of the application itself, a narrative from the applicant, a commercial lease agreement, a site plan by Diamond Design, elevations of proposed use, 3 pages of floor plans of the subject property, 2 aerial photos of the subject property, and a letter from Miss Griffin with the zoning plans and zoning department.
Sorry, just for clarity, was the supplement that's about 7 pages in length included with the narrative response? Thank you.
Yes. I believe it was. That's, I think, what I have described as the narrative. Let me just confirm. So there was the application itself, then the variance narrative was, there was the 3 pages of a variance narrative. Hold on a minute. I'm sorry. Opened the wrong file. I'm quite certain that it was. Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes. With several exhibits.
Yes, with the
Yes.
exhibits you mentioned, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, please.
Good evening. My name is Beth Kern. I'm from the CGA Law Firm. I'm here this evening on behalf of the York Community Resource Center, which is otherwise known as York Tech Centro. And with me on behalf of this application are Alice Ann Frost from York Tech Centro and Grant Marshall from Marshall Engineering. As stated in the summary by your solicitor, this applicant proposes to utilize the subject property at 800 East Market Street as a community facility that will be focused on workplace development and social services. And in particular, we believe that that would be most appropriate under Section 1304.01-3.02002 of the city's zoning ordinance as that defined community center in the UN2. Brief background, this property was previously an M&T branch. You'll hear tonight from Alice Ann Frost, who's the executive director, regarding the history of how that property came to be transitioned from a bank branch to the current proposed site of the York Tech Centro, which again focuses on a large variety of social services, including workforce development, helping to serve those that are both underemployed and unemployed in the community. And again, we are also asking, in the event that you disagree with our interpretation that a community center use is the more appropriate use based on the activities that will be taking place, we're willing to consider a grant of a special exception for the educational facility post grade 12 or equivalent, again granted pursuant to special exception of one nonconforming use being the prior bank use to the other nonconforming use being the educational facility. Additionally, out of an abundance of caution, given the 2 different parking requirements that would apply, we're here asking for parking relief based on the 36 parking spaces in total that are planned at the project site. With that, unless the board has any particular questions of me, I would like to bring Alice Ann Frost up so you can hear some testimony and evidence from her directly. Thank you. Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Alice Ann Frost. First name spelled ALICEANNE, last name FROST.
And how are you employed?
I am the executive director of the York Community Resource Center, York Tech Centro.
How long have you been employed by the York Community Resource Center?
I've been employed by the York Community Resource Center for almost a year now, but was previously involved with initial planning since 2021.
And can you just very briefly tell the board a little bit about your background?
Yes, so I have about 8 years experience running another nonprofit as executive director here in the city of York. I also have an accounting background. I was a former public accountant, and then I am on local and various boards within the city of York as well.
What type of entity is the York Community Resource Center, Inc. classified as?
It's a It's a nonprofit. We are a 501c3 independent nonprofit.
Are you directly familiar with the subject property, 800 East Market Street?
Yes, I am.
And is it your understanding that that property is located in the urban residential neighborhood zoning district of the city?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Can again, very briefly, can you explain for the board the background of this particular property, the prior use and the proposed use?
So the prior use was a former bank branch, which was actually donated to an organization called the Spanish American Civic Association, which is out of Lancaster, PA, and they are the owners of the property, and we are the tenants of the property at that location.
I'd like to call the board's attention to our applicant's Exhibit A, which I'll also be directing Alisanne with a copy of. What is this that I am showing you?
That's our lease agreement with the Spanish American Civic Association Development Corporation.
So you have a written lease in place that you are indeed the tenant of the current owner.
Yes, that's correct.
And you mentioned that the property was donated to what I'm going to refer to the owner as SACA for short, that property was donated to SACA. Why was that donation made?
That donation, for one, the bank was closing down that location and donated that property to SACA with the understanding that it would become a workforce development center. Also, given SACA's history over 10 years operating 2 tech centros in the Lancaster, PA area.
Is it always the York Community Resources Center intention to be a tenant of this location?
So it's not. So once our capital improvements and renovations are completed, we will actually, the York Community Resource Center, take ownership of the property.
And in addition to that future ownership, when the center would be ready, will the York Community Resource Center be operating the facility?
Yes, we will be owners and operators of that facility.
You briefly mentioned that SACA has a history of operating tech centros in other communities in Pennsylvania. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So Tech Centro, we will become the 6th Tech Centro in third-class cities around the state of Pennsylvania. Currently, there are 2 Tech Centros in Lancaster, PA, a Tech Centro in Reading, PA, which has been operating for 3 years now. Recently opened last August was Tech Centro in Lebanon. York will be open hopefully by the end of this year, and then they're in the planning stages of a Tech Centro in Harrisburg, PA.
Can you, again, briefly, for the sake of time, tell the board more in your own words about the services and activities that are going to take place at this property?
Sure. So really, Tech Centro, the model, we are slated to become a bilingual workforce development center that will provide case management services, wraparound services to our clients, including employment services, again, case management, supportive services, and GED, English as a second language, and then occupational training. The occupational training will include classes such as CNA, phlebotomy, medical assistant, and dental assistant.
I'd like to talk for a minute about the education and some of the materials that have been submitted to the city in the past for the project that state education. You agree there will be educational activities taking place at the property, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
But it will not be an educational institution such as a college or a trade school.
That's correct. We will not be licensed by the state or accredited by the state as a educational institution.
Will you have any certified teachers or instructors on staff?
No certified teachers or instructors. We actually will contract for those services with local providers that are certified.
So any reference to the word education or educational or classrooms that were included on your plan, what was the reason for that?
When we were doing the design plan, and I can't speculate to that, but when we were doing the design plan, word classroom, we'll have learning labs in there. Students will be able to come and do job search. So it was, the best, I guess, wording that at the time to make it also clear when people were viewing the site plans.
But it was never a intention or a review of the city zoning ordinance to find educational facility and classify the use as that pursuant to the ordinance.
No, that was not our intention.
Let's move on and talk about how the site will be staffed. How many employees do you intend to have?
We intend to have about 10 full-time employees, including myself.
And what types of positions and duties will those employees hold?
Sure. So our employees, like I said, myself as executive director, I will have a finance director. There will be several case managers on site being able to do the intakes with our clients. A receptionist, we'll have maintenance staff, and then career navigators, and then also community outreach. One of the biggest things with this model is making sure that we are doing community outreach. Something I didn't note earlier, we are neighborhood based, and that's part of the model is being in the neighborhood. So ensuring that we're doing proper outreach to people in the neighborhood is of the utmost importance.
What will the anticipated hours of operation be?
Our anticipated hours, normal working business hours, we will run classes in the morning, break in the afternoon, and then hopefully be able to run some evening classes because we are tailored to the adult learner, people that could be potentially working during the day and then coming to our classes in the evening. And that's also how the model is ran in Lancaster and the other cities as well.
Would that be to make sure you're providing services to the population that is defined as underemployed?
Yes, it would definitely be tailored to the underemployed, especially evening classes. Again, we're talking about people that are potentially working full-time jobs. They just aren't making a livable wage. And that's also part of the model is that we are really training and helping individuals obtain a skill set that will give them more of a livable wage.
Let's talk really briefly about the proposed building. How many floors are there currently?
There's 3 floors.
And will all 3 floors continue to be utilized with your proposed use?
Yes.
Will there be any kind of renovations?
Yes, there are renovations. We're currently undergoing renovations to put those proposed learning labs in and the allied health suite in.
And will there be any kind of addition to the property?
Yes, so we are, to ensure that we have adequate bathrooms, we are adding an addition to the back of the building to expand our bathrooms.
And will that expansion alter the property in any way?
So yes, as we're expanding out back, we will have to take away several, I believe about 5 parking spaces to expand onto that building to build the bathrooms out.
I'd like to turn now regarding the community center use. Did you have an opportunity to review the application that was submitted on your Community Resource Center's behalf?
Yes, I did.
Including the narrative or the supplement?
Yes.
And is it your understanding that the proposed community center use can meet all of the criteria for a special exception, with the exception of one?
Yes.
And what criteria will it not meet?
As far as the community center?
Yes. In terms of the technical specifications, what's the one thing that it can't meet?
I'd have to review the criteria again, or if you would go back through that for me. I'm sorry.
So part of that is within the use, I believe, is the amount of parking that would be required.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were referring to the parking. So yes, so the parking, like I had said earlier, we took away the certain parking spaces. And so that's one of the special exceptions in that criteria is we wouldn't have the number of parking spaces that are allotted for a community center.
Is it your understanding that a community center requires 1 parking space for every 200 foot of gross floor area?
Yes.
And the total square feet of the building is approximately 13,583 total square feet as outlined in the application?
Yes, that's correct.
So, based on that math, would you agree that that equals about 54.3 spaces?
Yes, if we did our math correct, yes.
So we aren't able to meet that with the 36 spaces.
That's correct.
And in particular, calling the board's attention to applicant's Exhibit B, what is this that I'm showing you here?
You're showing me the 36 parking spaces that are surrounding the building.
And that also
Includes the, that also includes the addition. So what's outlined in the red, you'll see that addition, which is the bathrooms that we're building onto the building.
Of the 36 parking spaces shown there, are those currently existing?
Yes, those are existing.
I'd also like to draw the board's attention to applicant's Exhibit E. It is the aerial photographs. Can you just briefly explain within the applicant's packet on the aerial photographs what they're seeing here on this first page?
Yes, so you're seeing that on the first page, the bank branch, which is along East Market Street and Sherman Street, and then you can also see the parking spaces. And then if you look towards the back of the building, which is on Sherman, you'll note that there's those 5 parking spaces there, and that's where we're building out the additional bathrooms and the parking spaces. But something I did want to mention and note also, again, this facility is in the neighborhood. And we do anticipate that a lot of our students will be walking from surrounding areas. And if, as I've noted, it's on East Market Street, you'll see a little blue icon on there. That's a bus stop. So we are accessible by bus as well. And so we're also anticipating that a lot of our students will take public transportation, be within walking distance, and also ride sharing. And I don't speculate just to that. Again, this is a model that has been running in the Lancaster area within a Lancaster neighborhood. And that's a lot of what they've seen, is that many of their students utilize alternate methods of transportation.
Do they have any particular data on about how many individuals might utilize not coming in their personal vehicle?
Yeah, more than half of their students are not coming in personal vehicles. And, as I noted earlier, we are working with individuals that are either unemployed or underemployed. Many of the students even experience homelessness. So having your own transportation is not always something that will occur.
In the application, we've noted that the max capacity of the building would be 146 occupants. Is that accurate?
Yes.
But that's not anticipated, or is it anticipated that all 146 will be there at one time?
Oh, no, absolutely not. So we're anticipating, even if we were fully staffed and had all of our clients there, we, like I said earlier, 10 full-time staff there. If we're running 2 classes at a time, you're looking at potentially 15 students, if that, at one time. And again, like more than 50% of those clients would probably be taking some alternate method of transportation.
So based on that and the projected number of employees and staff you believe you'll have, do you feel that 36 parking spaces will provide adequate parking for the proposed use?
Yes, I do.
And then just very briefly, you stated before that you are familiar with the application. Did you have an opportunity to review that application in full before it was submitted?
Yes, I did.
And did that include the narrative responses, specifically the special exception criteria within the application?
Yes, it did.
And to the best of your understanding, is all of that information true and accurate?
Yes.
Then turning to the narrative responses for the variance criteria in the application, did you have an opportunity to review those?
Yes, I did.
And to the best of your knowledge, is all of the information true and accurate regarding the narrative responses for the variance criteria?
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions for Alice Ann at this point in time?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Arletta Riviera. That's Arletta Riviera. I got a question for you. You're saying that students, but then you're giving me a time limit, like from morning shift, afternoon shift, and evening shifts. Students go to school, so they won't be attending. You're talking afternoon shift. Well, they won't be attending afternoon because they're still in school. So we're looking at evening shift. Well, evening shift gets kind of late, and we don't want our children out. So that makes that not well. Now we're looking at, you're saying that the teachers, they're going to be taught, what are we talking? English as a second language or Spanish as a second language? We're looking at English as a second language, then we're looking at more Spanish people learning in this facility, then more English people learning in this facility. So we're looking at who actually is learning in this facility. Okay, are you helping out the Spanish group, or are you helping out the American group? I'd just like to know, because what you're saying to me and what I'm hearing is the American group can sit to the side, and what you're doing is helping out the Spanish group.
Ma'am,
also, I want to know that you told me about the M&T Bank. They donated that to you. What year did they donate that to you?
So I'll start with your first questions.
Go right ahead.
Start, and then if I miss anything, please let me know, because those were a lot of questions. So the easiest one, the M&T Bank branch, they donated that to Saka Development Corp in late 2021, early 2022. I don't have that exact timeline. But to your point about the ESL classes, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it is, it's a concern and it's a good question. One of the things that I did want to note, when we say English as a second language, it's not just geared towards Spanish-speaking people. We're talking about anyone that wants to learn the English language. So I'm not sure if many of you know many of the demographics here in the city of York, but we do have an increased Haitian population coming into our city. So if they are speaking French Creole, they would also want to learn English as a second language. And I know sometimes when we hear English as a second language, it's a misconception or misnomer that it's for only Spanish-speaking individuals. So it would not be. As far as the classes, so you had mentioned the classes and students. Something I had noted to earlier, our clientele are 18 and older. They're individuals that are adult learners. They're individuals that are potentially working full-time jobs, or they're unemployed altogether. We would not be running an afternoon class, actually. We would actually run a morning cohort, give a little bit of a break, but it's important that we have to run an evening cohort, because if you have a mom or dad who's working a 9 to 5, this gives them an opportunity to be educated. And something that I didn't get a chance to note earlier, but I think it's relevant, important to your question, all of our services are free to that individual. Our services are being underwritten by our donors and our funders, so that somebody that's looking to better their lives, get a better living wage, can come and not take on an additional financial burden. There is no criteria as far as race or class. Anyone that is 18 and older who wants to come in, who wants to learn, who wants to better their lives is free and welcome to come. So I'm hoping that answers some of your questions.
It answers some, but then you went over it on a double take. Okay, I appreciate what you said.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we do have more minorities in our York City. A lot of them are here undocumented, so they probably won't be coming to your class.
I'm going to just, ma'am, the board is tasked with considering.
Oh, that was just a comment.
I'm sorry?
That was just a little comment that I had to throw in there.
As the board is aware, neither cultural nor ethnic nor racial considerations are anywhere in the considerations for a special exception or a variance. That is, of course, what we're here tonight to consider. So I frankly would say that area of discussion and consideration is pretty irrelevant to this discussion tonight.
Okay. All right. I thank you very much, and I appreciate you not thinking about my concerns.
Just to address a few questions that I think may help the board members also regarding the community center as opposed to an educational facility post grade 12 or equivalent and above. You mentioned the relationship that SACA has other tech centros in Pennsylvania. Has there been any dialogue between those other tech centros in the state regarding how the facilities are classified?
Yes, so some years back, SACA went through a process with the state as far as what their classified use should be. And it was actually determined that SACA and the Tech Centro model was more of a community-based center than an educational facility. And one of those points being we're not educational facilities have to have certain licensing and receive certain, can even qualify for certain educational grants, none of which we would be licensed or be able to qualify for. And so they actually received that determination. And it would be my opinion that all tech centros, since we're following that model, would be modeled after that.
And so you don't receive any education grants?
So we're not receiving, and we don't qualify for things like that. Educational facilities would qualify for educational grants. Our funding is actually coming through the Department of Community and Economic Development in the state.
And what's your understanding of the rationale of why funding comes from DCED for short?
Yes, from DCED. So the understanding is, and I noted to this earlier, we're providing training that helps individuals receive a career that will increase their living wage, in which that can act as an economic driver for the city.
And what's the ultimate goal of Tech Centro's services to the individuals that come in?
Ultimate goal is to help train them and help them receive a career, again, that is increasing their wages and increasing their living standard, and truly a pathway out of poverty.
Are there any questions of Alice Ann?
Ms. Watson?
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to stand and share with you all, as the Director of Economic and Community Development, that I had an opportunity to visit the Lancaster Community Center. It was amazing. There were people from all backgrounds. All of the classes were full. And actually, the day I went, it brought tears to my eyes just to see, especially the young men who were actually in the training that was taking place there. This is definitely something that the city of York needs. It would be a benefit. And in Lancaster, the community center sat in the middle of the neighborhood. It was so many people in there. It was amazing. It had all these different classes. So I just wanted to say that if we are able to do this, it would be amazing for the city of York.
Thank you.
If there aren't any questions of Alice Ann, we do have one more witness that will be very brief testimony for the board. Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Grant Marshall, GrantMarshall.
And how are you employed?
I have my own engineering company.
How long have you had your own engineering company?
18 years.
Can you just very briefly for the board explain your educational and work background?
So graduated from Penn State in 1986, went on to work for private companies and did a lot of civil work, PennDOT work, Turnpike work, went out on my own and started my own company and have been doing civil work and building design ever since I went out on my own.
And how are you specifically involved with this project at 800 East Market Street?
I worked on the building design and the site, the parking layout.
Which you heard some testimony from Alice-Ann, that there will be 36 parking spaces at the proposed site. Is that your understanding?
That is correct.
And is that a change from the existing parking?
Yes.
Do you recall by how many spots?
We lost 5 parking spots.
Has there been any other change to the property regarding any access points to or from the streets?
No, they have the same egress and ingress points.
And this is on a corner lot, is that correct?
That is correct.
And in your professional experience as a civil engineer, are you aware of any particular concern that this proposed project might raise to the safety or access to facilities within the community?
No, there would be no change compared to the bank.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Marshall?
I do. I have one question on the design. Since you're taking up parking spots, and I'm looking at the, I guess it was probably the drive-through teller on the, I'll call it the right side of the building.
That was a drive-through.
What, it appears that it's going to be left there. Wouldn't there be a better way of using that part of the parking area for the bathroom section? Rather than putting it on the back, put it on the side. I was looking at the design.
When you look at the inside of the
Okay.
building, which that's what was determined where the bathroom should go, like on the, where the drive-through is.
Right.
That is an open area and really a lot of the space that's being used on the main floor, I'm referring, was
Right.
towards the rear of the building, and we wanted to get the restrooms as close as practical.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Well, at this point in time, again, we would submit that we've established that the activities that will be taking place at the property are more in line with the zoning ordinance definition regarding the community center use as opposed to an educational facility post grade 12 or equivalent thereof. And in addition, we feel we've met the criteria involved for variance regarding the parking space, as this would be considered a dimensional variance requiring a less stringent standard. So in the interest of your time, I thank you very much for listening to our presentation and welcome any additional questions you may have.
I have a question. I'm confused because I think our notes up here are a little out of whack. And I hate saying it that way, but I think the special exception that you're looking for is a community center, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
And our notes up here say you're looking for a special exception for the use of an educational facility. And I don't think that's correct.
So I think what happened here was that the zoning department made a determination that this use is an educational facility post-grade 12 or equivalent. The applicant has asked you to, they basically appealed that determination and asked you to determine in the alternative that this is an that this is a community center. Okay, so I think that the first action would be to take a vote on the appeal of the zoning officer determination to determine whether or not this is a community center or whether this is an educational facility. Thereafter, then what I would do is I would take the vote on the special exception and the variance. Now, the special exception, correct me if I'm wrong here, but regardless of whether it is an educational facility or a community center, we're still looking at a special exception for either of those uses. So to some degree, it's a little bit form over function, but that's how I would handle this.
Are the requirements for parking the same for a community versus the educational?
They are not. The requirement for the community center is based on the square footage of the total facility. The requirement for the post K equivalent is one. Let me pull up my notes so I don't tell you incorrectly. It is one per every employee space, and I believe one for every 3
Correct.
student. And just another point of clarification I'd like to ask for when it gets to the motions on the agenda, specifically regarding the parking space notation for the variance. I believe the reference to 1304.01-03.001D is in reference to the K through 12 facility. So I would just respectfully request that upon that motion, if you do determine that the educational facility is the appropriate use to consider, that you would update that to the 2D instead of 1D, so that we have appropriate relief.
Okay.
So just as a, if the board, if it would help the board, the definition of a community center is a building used for recreational, social, educational, and cultural activities associated with the operation of a nonprofit organization. Now, this is all ultimately for the determination of the board, but it seems to me that we have heard testimony tonight, certainly regarding educational. I would suggest that to some degree cultural activities may have been discussed as well, and they have testified that they are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. With respect to educational facility post-grade 12 or equivalent, the definition includes colleges, universities, business schools, community college, and trade schools other than those defined as industrial education. And just to close the loop, industrial education is defined as specialized school teaching industrial skills. So I don't think that I don't think that part is relevant to the consideration, but it is ultimately up to the board to determine whether this fits in the definition of community center as requested by the applicant.
So what would our next action be to make that change?
Essentially, what you would do is you would make a motion to grant the appeal and basically determine that this fits the definition of a community center. Would that satisfy your?
Yes.
Yeah.
So moved.
Well, here, before we do that, I'd like also to just get in the record that the Planning Commission recommended approval for the parking and also a special exception for the educational facility. So they didn't even discuss the community center.
And there again, Attorney Kern was not present at the Planning Commission. Again, if you want to give your understanding of what took place there, feel free.
And I don't need to hear it because I'm in favor of the community center myself. So I'm just.
My understanding is there was a general discussion regarding the proposed project and the activities that were going to take place. And really the only questions that that the Planning Commission had were regarding the amount of parking spaces that were going to be lost with the addition and the total amount of parking spaces that would still remain. And then they did their subsequent approval, again, not really having any discussion on community center over educational facility.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get that in.
I'll make that motion. Is that enough?
So essentially, if I understand you correctly, you're making a motion to grant the appeal of the zoning officer determination and to determine that this is a community center as defined in section 1304.01-3.02.002.
Correct.
A second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Nugent and seconded by Ms. Jenkins to approve the appeal of the zoning determination and find that, and grant a special exception for a community center.
Well, we haven't gotten to that yet. This is just for the appeal. We'll get to the special exception after this.
Okay, well then, granting the appeal, upholding, or the appeal of the zoning determination. Is that's enough?
Yep.
And that motion was made by Mr. Nugent and seconded by Ms. Jenkins. Any comment or question? Call for the vote. Mr. Nugent?
Now, in this one, he can participate.
Yeah, Corey.
Corey can participate.
Yes, sorry. Mr. Carden?
Aye.
Carden, aye. Mr. Nugent?
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins?
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye.
And so now what you would be looking for is action on the requested special exception and variance. As Attorney Kearns said, what you would want to do is you would want, if so inclined, it would be a motion to grant a special exception to permit a community center in the UN2 zone.
In the case of 5-2-024-Z-SE-D for 800 East Market Street, I move to approve a variance, the required number of parking spaces as defined in section 1304.01-03.
Excuse me, hold on.
002
Yep, sorry, you're right. You're correct.
to D, in the UN2 zoning district.
Good job. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins.
I'll second.
Should that include the, to allow 36, to the number 36 parking spaces? Or
That's
is that,
required number.
Yeah, it would be helpful to clarify that no less than 36 parking spaces.
So no less than 36 parking spaces.
okay, it's been moved by Ms. Jenkins and seconded by Mr. Nugent to approve the variance to the parking requirement to allow 36 off-street parking spaces. Calling for the vote, Mr. Carden?
Aye.
Carden, aye. Mr. Nugent?
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins?
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye.
For the next one, for the special exception, I believe the solicitor also wanted to put in the corrected code, so it wasn't a 1304. I think I got it right here.
So this is community center.
Yeah, it's not 1306, it's 1304.01. It's right here. That's the same one that was up here.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
-3.02.002.
So I move to approve a special exception used for community center pursuant to 1304.01.3.02.002.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Ms. Jenkins, seconded by Mr. Nugent to approve the special exception for the community center use. Right?
Yep.
Calling for the vote, Mr. Carden?
Aye.
Carden, aye. Mr. Nugent?
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins?
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good package, by the way.
break?
I can get one more.
You can do one more?
Yep.
Okay. And I guess we can
Take
try
it in
to
order.
go back to regular order.
I think so, yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
can, you can figure that out.
Okay, the next case is case number 9-2024-Z-V/SE. The applicant and owner of the subject property is Michael Kalm of Shrewsbury, Pennsylvania, on behalf of Scott Rohrbaugh. The subject property is located at 513 Pennsylvania Avenue, which address is located in the RS2 Single Family Attached Residential Conservation District of the City of York. Applicant seeks several variances and a special exception to permit a multifamily dwelling conversion from a different use. First, the applicant seeks a definitional variance to permit a multifamily dwelling conversion from a different use from a single-family residence. Next, the applicant seeks a variance to permit up to 2 dwelling units, which exceeds allowable density requirements set forth in the City of York zoning ordinance. The applicant, excuse me. The applicant further seeks a variance to permit a conversion in a property which has not been vacant for at least 2 years as required by the zoning ordinance. The applicant also seeks a variance from the requirement that the applicant provide 3 off-street parking spaces. The applicant can provide only 2 off-street parking spaces. Finally, the applicant seeks a special exception to permit a multifamily dwelling conversion from a different use, a use permitted by special exception in the RS2 district. The application was reviewed by the planning staff of the City of York. The planning staff recommends denial of the requested variances related to the definition of multifamily dwelling conversion from a different use and parking requirements. The planning staff recommends approval of the requested variance related to density and vacancy. The planning staff recommends approval of the special exception, provided all variance requests are approved by the zoning hearing. The case was heard by the Planning Commission on March 11th. By way of, by way of unanimous vote, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the requested variances and the special exception. The record before the board this evening consists of the application itself, an 8-page narrative, an aerial photo of the property, the deed to the subject property, 4 pages of sketch floor plans, a layout entitled Agent 360, and 7 pages of photos of the subject property.
Okay.
Good evening. My name's Michael Kalm. I represent Scott Rohrbaugh, who is the applicant here for 513 Pennsylvania Avenue. This is one of those properties in the city, I'm sure you've seen this before, where the Rohrbaughs purchased the property. It was advertised. I actually looked at the listing. It was advertised as a 2-unit, and come to find out it was not a 2-unit. It was only zoned for 1. It was not discovered until a subsequent inspection. So we filed the application to have the to request a special exception and the necessary variances to have the unit zoned for 2-family use. It's been in use as a 2-family at least before 2020, albeit illegally. So we've had 4+ years with no issues in the community. A lot of the other structures in this neighborhood are also 2-unit. So there really isn't any change that's going to occur to the neighborhood. The use is compatible with the neighborhood. We're not changing anything about the present use, and there's been no complaints. As you are aware, most of the lots in the city are not really that big, so we do need some variances in terms of the dimensional size of the lot. The lot's only 0.07 acres, as I'm sure that's not a surprise to most of you. Most of the lots in the city aren't that big. And there isn't enough off-street parking. The ordinance requires 3 spaces. There's only 2. Well, my understanding is is there a garage on the property as well? A 2-car garage. So I think that should address that issue. And then in terms of the variance, as we explained, the property was constructed and designed as a dwelling. Kind of my point to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission seemed to agree with me, was that, you know, whether you have 2 units in it or 1 unit, you can only put so many people in it. So we're not really putting more people in this structure than there would be in there in a 1 unit. It's just it's into 2 smaller sizes, that's all. It can't really be used for any other use other than a dwelling house, nor would we want to. It's in a residential community. So we're not, you know, it doesn't make sense to use it for any other use but as an apartment building. As I indicated earlier, most of the other buildings in the neighborhood are also 2-unit apartments as well. Clearly, the unnecessary hardship was not created by the Rohrbaugh, since they purchased it, paid purchase price based on a 2-unit. Were they aware that it was not a 2-unit, that it was only zoned for 1 unit, they would not have purchased it, or alternatively would have sought zoning approval, you know, with a contingent contract. And a lot of the factors, as you're aware, overlap with special exception, and that there's really not going to be any change to the community from the way it's been operated for the last 4, 5, 6 years. We're not really sure when it was originally converted. Are you aware of when it converted, Mr. Rohrbaugh?
One old lady lived there for her life, and it was sold by, I guess, power of attorney to not knowing.
So, if you'd like, I can have Mr. Rohrbaugh testify and create a record, go through some of the narrative that's in my application to support the elements of the special exception and the variances. Unless you have some questions as to my presentation, and then I can get into making a record.
Are there 2 entrances for the people who live there? 2 separate entrances?
Say that again?
2 separate entrances?
No, it's one entrance, you go into the foyer, one, you know, the bottom, the first 3 go off to the right, and then there's a step up to the 2nd and 3rd floor.
Okay. And then is there, as far as the utilities, are there separate?
Yeah, everything was separated, yeah.
Is your mic on?
So just for clarification, Mr. Rohrbaugh, each apartment has its own separate door. In other
Own
words,
separate door, own separate bathrooms. You would have never known it wasn't a 2-unit.
Is anyone in the audience here for this case specifically? It's a solid packet. Utilities are separated. Looks to me like it's a 2-unit.
If I missed, both of the units are occupied?
that's the other concern as well. You know, we don't want to kick tenants that's been living here for a while just basically out on the street and say, well, we don't have zoning approval anymore. We thought we had zoning approval. You got to get out. You know, it's not really fair to them. They haven't done anything wrong, and neither have the Rohrbaughs. You know, they relied on what they were told. Like I said, it's not, that in of itself isn't really the issue. I think that when you look at it, it's very consistent with the neighborhood. It's not creating any impact on the neighborhood, any adverse impact on the neighborhood. You know, I think it's a good use for the property that's consistent with the other buildings.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, the stenographer needs to be able to hear everything, so please keep the chatter in the gallery down to a minimum, please.
Oh, okay, I think we've got the application was well prepared, and I frankly, for one, don't see the need to get into a debate, which I think the Planning Commission did, about fault finding, about who should have detected this. I think you know now that if you are considering buying another property like this, you need to have someone check the zoning on it. So I don't want to get involved. If anyone else does, you may, about whose fault it was or who didn't do their due diligence. The real life decision that we're making here is whether or not to evict tenants from a building that does seem to meet all the requirements for a two-unit conversion, except the technical ones about definition, I would say, and the parking variance. Other comment?
No.
The current tenants, what's their car situation? Sounds like they're not leaving, so, I mean, they have two cars.
One lady's in section 8, and then there's another smaller family upstairs. So they've been there ever since I bought the place.
Do they have cars?
Each one of them has one car.
And do they use the garage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve a variance to the definition of multifamily conversion from a different use as defined in section 1304.01-1.02.002A at 513 Pennsylvania Avenue in the RS2 zoning district.
It's been moved by Mr. Nugent and seconded by Ms. Jenkins to approve the, do I have the right one? To approve the variance to the definition? Is that?
Yep.
Calling for the vote. Thank you. Calling for, be sure I give it back to you. Calling for the vote, Mr. Carden.
Aye.
Carden, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
And aye. And Mr. And Williams, aye.
I'll move to approve a dimensional variance for multifamily conversion from a different use found in section 1304.01-1.02.002 to include conversion of a single-family home into 2 units for the property at 513 Pennsylvania Avenue in the RS2 zoning district.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Nugent, seconded by Ms. Jenkins to approve the variance, the dimensional variance for multi-family conversion from a different use. Calling for the vote, Mr. Carden.
Aye.
Carden, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye.
I'll move to approve a variance to the required off-street parking spaces found in section 1304.01-1.02.002 for the property at 513 Pennsylvania Avenue in the RS2 zoning district.
Mr. Nugent, you might want to just clarify that no less than 2 off-street parking spaces.
No less than 2 off-street parking spaces.
Second. It's been moved by Mr. Nugent, seconded by Williams to approve the variance to the required off-street parking spaces. What did you add? To provide 2 off-street parking spaces. Calling for the vote, Mr. Carden.
Aye.
Carden, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
Aye, and Jenkins, aye, and Williams, aye.
Oh, did I miss one? Okay. I'll move to approve a variance to waive the special exception provision that the property must have been vacant for 2 years found in section 1311.11C1 for the property located at 513 Pennsylvania Avenue in the RS2 zoning district.
Second. It's been moved by Mr. Nugent and seconded by Mr. Holman to approve the variance to the special exception provision requiring 2 years vacant. Calling for the vote, Mr. Carden.
Aye.
Carden, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman. Aye. Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye.
And I'll move to approve a special exception to allow multifamily use as defined in section 1304.01-1.02.002 at 513 Pennsylvania Avenue in the RS2 zoning district.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Nugent, seconded by Mr. Holman to approve the special exception to allow the multifamily use. Calling for the vote, Mr. Carden.
Aye.
Carden, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye. So you're approved.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And I move a 7 or 8 or 9 minute break.
Very good.
Paper back.
All day long.
All right, okay.
Talk about.
Maybe I need to go make you a copy. You don't have a copy of the agenda?
I do, and it's sitting right there.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna, where we have 10, 11, 12.
No, we don't have 12. 12 is continued.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
No, it didn't jump out.
But still.
Okay.
It did.
I'm good, by the way. Corey.
Problem, well, nobody's here on the South Pine Street project, are they?
CAR.
I mean, it would be Joe Musso or Blandon Ace.
To there. In my elder years, I'm not
If he had hurt
quite
me,
as
don't wanna-
memorable.
Franklin. He's in the bathroom. Yeah. Oh, I know.
Painful. And here I thought all this time Judge Euler. We'll take it back, everything I said.
There are similarities.
Very.
Yeah. I had never thought about that.
Oh, yeah, and stories. That's
Mhm.
where they're at. They're so storytelling.
Yep.
I'll go back to 40 years ago. Oh my God.
Yep.
It's lunchtime. You know, or whatever, you know, at work, in court. I'm like, seriously.
And then this last one on 12 is been waived. Extension, we don't even have a packet. Maybe we only have 2 left. And I didn't realize it was coming up. Sale one.
I'm ready whenever you are.
You sure?
Mhm.
Could take another minute.
I'm ready. We're on number 10, I believe.
Yep. And this one could get interesting.
I'm sorry?
This one could get interesting.
Yeah. You all set?
Yep.
Okay. The next case this evening is case number 10-2024-Z-V. The applicant and owner of the property is Anthony Wagstaff of 4009 Bariva Road, Baltimore, Maryland. The subject property is located at 477 Salem Ave, which address is located in the UN2 Urban Residential Neighborhood Zoning District of the City of York. Applicant seeks several variances to permit the subject property to be used as a rooming house. First, applicant seeks a variance to relieve the applicant of the requirement that the owner of a rooming house reside at the subject property. Next, applicant seeks a variance to reduce the required number of off-street parking spaces from 4 to 1. Next, the applicant seeks a variance to permit rental rooms less than 250 square feet in size. Finally, the applicant seeks a variance to permit the subject property to be used as a rooming house, which use is not permitted by right or by special exception in the UN2 zone. The application was reviewed by the planning staff of the City of York. The planning staff recommends that the zoning hearing board deny the variances related to owner occupancy and parking. The planning staff recommends that the zoning hearing board approve the requested variances to permit rental rooms smaller than that which is permitted by the zoning ordinance. The planning staff recommends approval of the requested use variance if all other variances are approved by the zoning hearing board. The case was heard by the City of York Planning Commission on March 11th, 2024. By way of unanimous vote, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the requested variances. And I should be clear that that there was an error in the application, which initially had said a special exception, so the Planning Commission acted on a special exception. Because it was advertised, the use was advertised, I think that in this case, I'm comfortable with the board moving forward as is. I think that sufficient notice was provided, even given the fact that the standards are slightly different. But again, the Planning Commission recommended approval of a special exception, but in fact, we're dealing with a variance. And they conditioned their recommended approvals on on the home being returned to a single-family dwelling upon transfer of ownership. Again, I've discussed this matter with you, but that's their recommendation. The record before the board this evening consists of the application itself, one page of a letter dated January 8th. Again, it was missing the second page of that letter. A deed to the subject property, 4 pages of floor plans of the subject property, and 21 pages of photos of the subject property, including aerial views of the subject property.
Thank you. Mr. Wagstaff,
Yes, sir.
you're visiting York again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This is my third time in front of you all in the last 2 years, year and a half maybe. If it's okay with you, I'd like to bring the pictures up from the other properties that you all approved, just to kind of show you that the work is consistent in terms of the standard that we do with the work.
Now, these are pictures of
Those are pictures of the two other properties.
the two other properties, yeah.
Right. 846 East Philadelphia Street and 239 East Princess Street are both owned by Community Investment Group. So as you're looking at those pictures, again, you can see the standard for the work is consistent across the board. We try to renovate the property to really a high rental sales standard, to be quite honest. Work that's been done in there includes, new paint throughout. Try to keep it as close to original as possible. Sanding the original floors down and coating those. In areas that couldn't be, we had to put the luxury vinyl flooring down. New ceramic tile, new roof on the main house, new roof on the garage. All the safety equipment's been put in, smoke detectors in all the rooms, carbon monoxide detectors. Operating a rooming house. Now they having a third one. I'm in York quite a bit these days. I also do have a property manager who's local. That's been helping me to maintain the other properties. I'm at the house myself at least once a week, and my property manager is also there at least once a week. Believe it or not, I come in with a guy and I actually clean the common areas myself. I do this full time. I said it, the last time. I do this full time. I'm not some out of state guy who just swoops in. I'm here. I'm 100% committed. This is all I do. I don't have a second anything. So I literally come in once a week and clean the common areas myself.
Now, did you mean when you said just a minute ago that you are up here at the properties once a week or more?
Yes, sir.
You mean kind of routine visit inspection, not responding to a complaint or report?
No. It's there's a lot of maintenance and just upkeep required in these properties. So I found that like being on site, having a face like a sort of authority figure on site between myself and the property manager helps to keep things in line, if you will. So I'm there whether something happens or not. I literally clean the common areas once a week. But I can give you so many examples. Just because we come once a week, we're able to catch all kinds of repairs before they become issues. I can give you several examples of things that happen that we've been able to fix immediately because we're always on site. But and we do provide, all utilities are included, Wi-Fi is included, rooms are furnished. And we now provide TVs to those that need them.
I'm sorry?
We provide television, we'll provide a, TV to someone if they need it. They literally only have to bring their clothes. I probably, I guess because we're legal and licensed in multiple properties, we're connected with community organizations now. So I get calls like the other guy was saying. I get maybe 2 or 3 calls a week where people need a place to stay, and every day they live in a hotel. It's amazing. I'm shocked, honestly. People call constantly looking for a place to stay. So there's, from what I can tell, there's definitely a need. So we try to fill it.
Your picture's in the application. Have you obviously been working on it? I mean, the
Yes, sir.
condition it's in right now is due to your work.
Yes, sir.
The gray paint on the front,
Yes, sir.
the nice looking interior. So,
I
okay.
did all the paint, by the way. I do the work,
Yeah.
as much of it as I can myself.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
And just to add, I just to try to connect with the community as much as we can. I actually, even though I have a property manager who is local, I do give my personal number to neighbors that I meet. I'm cordial with the neighbor at Philadelphia Street. He wasn't able to attend. I asked him to come. He couldn't. He had to work. He actually wrote a letter for me. I didn't know if you guys wanted it or not, but he wrote a long letter just to talk about how he appreciates what we do. Because I'm there all the time. He sees me a lot. So he had an issue at the house. I mean, I'm not going to say it's perfect because it's not. There was an issue with noise, but he's able to text me because he has my personal number. He texts me at night. We addressed it immediately. So he's very happy with the service that we provide. I have the letter if you want it.
And that's for which address?
Philadelphia Street. Yeah, he lives 844 Scott.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone here who's here specifically for this case?
I'm not.
I'm just asking.
I'm not quite ready for that. Mr. Wagstaff, I wish you lived a little closer, I gotta tell you, but I guess you're making it work.
Well, in all fairness, my office is 45 minutes away. If you Google it right now, that's nothing. I mean, everywhere I go is 45 minutes. Like to me, I feel like I'm local. If something happens, I'm up here.
You have your car on autopilot?
It might as well, because I'm constantly here. Like I'm serious. It's there's a lot of care that's needed to maintain these properties, and because I do it full time, as I mentioned earlier, I don't have any other like a full time. This is my full time. I'm invested in this, so I can't let it go down. I can't let something fall apart and fix it later. I can't afford that. So I'm here as often as I'm here all the time. So.
I don't have to ask. I know that there are at least 2, I think, residents of Salem Avenue who have some concerns, and we might as well. I think we need to get to them. You need to hear them. They need to meet you. I mean, if this ends up not being approved, you will have met. If it is approved, you will be neighbors.
Right.
Right? So, is Miss Sweeney here? Would you like to tell us and Mr. Wagstaff of your concerns.
And all the time? I never met you.
I'm always there. I know Lewis next door.
You know Lewis? Okay. Okay. I never, some of your other neighbors that never met you.
I told you I recognize you if I met you on the street. Would you give and spell your name for the stenographer?
Noah Nisha Sweeney, Tanoue, capital Onishi, last name Sweeney, Sweeny. My main concern about a rooming house in that area, when the letters came out, we really didn't have enough time to get together with the rest of the neighbors to talk about this. We are just getting that area cleaned up. I owned a property in the 600 block that I had to end up literally giving away because there were so many multi-homes up there that you just made them turn back into single homes, where when they had the rooming homes and the apartments and all that, they were trap houses, they were drug houses. You're not from here. You don't know the history. What you're getting ready to do is set us back up to take us back another 5-6 years. Once we start letting them put those rooming houses back on that West End, you're going to turn back into the gang, the drugs, the territorial. We're going to go backwards. And it's just getting back to a community. And I really, really do not think that it's a good idea to allow a rooming house. You're saying that you're up here every day, all week long. Okay, if you're going into your rooming house on the Princess Street, I forget the address you said, and cleaning up the area yourself all week long, that means that the people that's in there are careless. They're trifling. If you have to clean it, they should be cleaning it themselves. So if you don't have a week that you can't come down here, what's going to happen to the rooming house? Or the day you can't come down here? If you shouldn't have to babysit these people if they were accountable. No, a statement. And if they were accountable, you shouldn't have to babysit them, my opinion. Okay. I lived here all my life, majority of my life, and I've seen what happened on West End. I've seen how it developed, how it fell down. I've seen why it fell down. And it start falling when people start having multi-family living in single-family dwellings. That's when we start having the problems. Now, go ahead. I'll respond.
So, Mr. Wagstaff, would you come? Would you let him get close enough to the mic?
I clean not because I have to. It's because I like to stay connected to the property. I know guys who do this, and they try to put it on autopilot, and they just go off and do whatever they want to do. I want to stay connected. When I talk to Mr. Lewis, who lives next door to the left, he told me about the family that was there before I bought the house. It was a single family. They tore the house up, and so I say that to say, single family doesn't mean clean. I mean, I have pictures in my phone. You wouldn't believe the amount of toys we took out of the vents because they were stuffing toys in the vents. It was crazy. But I also have a local property manager, and you're welcome to have my number. You're welcome to have property manager's number. The other properties that I have are also just kind of reasons for me being here up to the house in general. So I'm always in the area. So when I was fixing the house, I was there every day. But now, I don't have a reason to be there right now. Once this is done, assuming I pass, then of course we were getting into that rotation. We were there all the time. But as I mentioned to you earlier, the fact that I do this full time, I can't stress how important that is. You have people who invest in this. It's a hobby. They have a full-time job. This is something they do on the side. They want to look good on social media. There's a difference between a person who's in the trenches, who actually did the work themselves. I don't have any other job. I can't afford to let it fall or any of that stuff. So, and like I said, Mr. Scott, who lives next door, he lives at 844 East Philadelphia Street. I wish he could have been here because he's local like you, and he could speak to my character. And I so all you can really go on is my word. But that's really all I can say.
Well, I'm not speaking of your character. I'm speaking of the character of the people in the neighborhood and the people that would be living in your house. I appreciate what you're doing, and I know there is a lot of homeless people, but there's also a lot of homeless family. And you're fixing the house up as well as you're saying you're fixing them up. That would be great. That would be great for some of these parents that you have families in homeless shelters that have 4 and 5 children and have no place to go. That would be great for one of them to live there in that house as a community, as a family unit, and rather than taking the risk of turning our neighborhood back into the 600 block of Princess Street again. And we know how hard we fought in York to get rid of that. And this is where I see it going in that direction because it's already territory like that. It's not going, it's not away, it's just hidden because they don't have those individual rooms as much anymore over there in that area. So if you lived through the era of the 600 block, you would understand my concern, okay? But you didn't. Take this beautiful home that you're doing, and I appreciate your work, I appreciate what you're doing, but make this one, this community, make it a single family home. If the other communities don't care, that's okay. I care. I have great-grandchildren, great-grandnieces, and little folks that like to be out. We like to have block parties. We like to have community things, and we do not want the trap houses and the drug dealers, which this here. Go ahead.
So, I want to be clear, and I can't. I want to stress it to you all. I'm going to stress it to you. If I was just chasing money, I wouldn't put the kind of work in that you see.
I didn't see it.
Oh, you look through it. You can look through it. But no, I'm making a point. I don't just take any person who applies, any random person that comes along. You know, there's a screening process. We talk to people. We know they have to have solid income. We don't just take any person off the street. It wouldn't so. And I also wouldn't say that every person that automatically lives in a rooming house is a part of a gang or going to bring violence to the neighborhood. It's not happening at Princess Street. It's not happening at East Philadelphia Street. I don't know the city. I'm still learning. I'm doing the best that I can to become a part of the community. But I certainly wouldn't say that everybody's bringing that type of element. And ultimately, how you manage the property matters. You can have a single-family home, as I mentioned that Mr. Lewis told me about, and I witnessed it when I first bought the home. Single-family home, one family, the house was trash. I just don't want to put a stigma on people, and I'm not saying that you're doing that, but rooming houses, if you don't manage a single-family house, you're going to have issues. If you don't manage, you can have the same thing with one family. You can have the exact same issue, and what you're saying, I totally respect it. But here's the thing, because
can I say something?
Yes,
you just
ma'am.
said yourself. The people's going to have you said the people's going to have a decent income that you're going to put in the home. You just said that you want this rooming house because of all the homeless people, the people with the low income, the people that don't have income. Now, it's got to be one way or the other.
Can I address that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, okay, it's all good. So what I said was, I get phone calls all the time from people who need a place to stay. Some of them are homeless. They have income. Some of them are homeless for different reasons. For example, I had a gentleman recently, been on his job for 3 years, makes what I consider decent money, for any standard. The place that he lived at, something happened with the landlord where the place was, was illegal or whatever it was. He got evicted. He needs somewhere to stay. So like it's not just anybody off the street can live in my house. This is mine. This is like my baby. I don't, there's no anybody living there. He has a job. So, but I do get calls from people. I got a call last week, a lady who, she's staying in a hotel. She said she's been in the hotel for a month. She gets SSI or something like that. She has income. How she got there, I don't know. But if you're living in a hotel, you're homeless, right? But she was looking for somewhere to stay. So maybe I wasn't clear. These aren't people who have absolutely nothing, but they need somewhere to stay, and it's the individuals. I'm not creating the need. It seems to be there. The other gentleman who was here earlier, who has 16 rooms. He said he gets 5 to 10 calls a week. Now, he's been doing this longer. He's got a larger portfolio. I haven't been doing this long. I only get, there's some list with York where, like, if you need a place to stay, you get a list of landlords. I don't know how, I'm on that list because I have legal properties. So I get random calls, just like he was saying, we get random calls. How they come to need that help, I don't know. But some are what I consider homeless, because if you're living in a hotel. The gentleman I mentioned earlier, who something happened with his landlord where I guess it was illegal, but he had a job. He had a solid income. He'd been living there for a couple of years. Somehow he's now out on the street. So he had a job. Like, he's not he didn't have any kids. So we tried to find a place for him.
I don't want to interrupt, but really this should be more of a conversation between the board and no, it shouldn't just be a debate between two people. I will say, obviously, that in terms of the variance criteria, one of the condition is that it will not alter the essential neighborhood of the essential character of the neighborhood in which the property is located. I think that we have heard that there are disagreements. I'm not sure that there is any. Again, I think there are just disagreements. I think the board has probably heard at least enough to sort of weigh those disagreements. And again, I don't want to, stymie debate. But on the other hand, I don't think that in the interest of time we should just let this go on and on and on forever.
Well, I agree, but I wasn't hearing a debate. I was hearing them try to understand where they both are coming from and what their concerns are, which is exactly what I was willing to invest some time in. Noe, may I call you?
Oh, yeah.
You know Vicky Toast.
Okay, so you really know me then, right?
Is Monica Reese here?
No, she's not here.
Oh, she's not here. I'm sorry. I assumed that she was.
That's a childhood nickname, so that tells you how far back it goes. Okay.
Now, I'll give you both a minute or two to sum up. I think our solicitor is right, though. I think the board has a pretty good understanding of the feelings and the concerns that you both have. Your concerns and your desire to make sure you don't live up to her worst expectations. But
I'm sorry, Mr. Wood, I just want to say,
briefly.
What, because you don't know me, obviously.
No, I don't. It's not about you, and it's not about your character. And I appreciate what you're doing with this house.
So my question to you, I want to just what would make you, because what I did at Philadelphia Street was give him my number so he could communicate with me.
Let me tell you something, honey. Being right there, the whole 9 yards, me having your number is not going to keep the guys that's going to move in there. That's the ideal people from selling drugs, turning into a trap house. Because I could call you, but as soon as you come,
They're gone.
They're gone.
Excuse
okay,
me now.
been there, done that. Already done been through this whole routine. It's not about you, and it's nothing about your character. It's living there, knowing what goes on in that area, knowing how these young boys treat things and the things that they do. Beautiful home. Make it into a single family home. You can get the rent that you can get, but
You're gonna get the
so
rent
it's all
more.
about money for you. If you, wait a minute.
Hold on. We need to do one at a time so that the stenographer can keep track of everything that's being said.
You're saying that you're concerned about the homeless, people that really need help. Help the mom that's on Section 8 that got 4 kids that's in a shelter right now can live in that home, and you can come and inspect it every week and keep it clean. They won't have the toys down there.
Can I answer real quick? So I don't mind sharing this because I think it's important to know whether it's me or somebody else. It's important to know when you purchase the purchase price for the house in the condition that it was. right? Even in ran down condition was 80,000, right? I put $40,000 into the house. My mortgage payment's over $1,000. So you just doing basic math. More, now if you call Elite Property Management, they're the largest property management company in the area. So based on the house that size, the house would rent for $1,200 a month. That's my mortgage payment. So it's not that it's about money, but how can you do business that wouldn't, 1 + 1, that wouldn't make sense, that wouldn't work.
They're renting houses in the same neighborhood for 15.
I'm just telling you what, I'm telling you what Elite Property, I call Elite. I don't work for them. They want my business.
I'm telling you.
Excuse me. This is going on a little too long. We got other cases and it's getting very late.
Okay, thank you. My name again is Arletta Riviera. I live in the neighborhood. Hello, my name is Arletta. I never saw you before. This is my husband and my daughter. Okay, we live right across the street. Like I said, I never saw you before, and you say you were in town every week. Nice to meet you. That neighborhood, 400 block of Salem Avenue, has been a family-owned neighborhood since I have been born. I've been here on this earth since 65 years. Okay? And I ain't gonna lie. I lived there, been there, ran up on that block there and played on that block. I got my children on that block, we played on that block, outside in the street running around, had no problems. Grandkids, everything. When you say bringing in a house that's gonna house different people within our block in the middle to the top of our block exactly where we have our kids actually playing at. Otherwise, you're telling me, too, that you're going to have 5 people, more people coming in our block where we already now fight for parking spaces. You have one, and I mean one garage out back. That's it. And you barely got a parking space out front. Like I said, we fight for parking spaces. We have people on Princess Street that come around and park on Salem Avenue. We have people on Green Street that come around and park on Salem Avenue. So it's very, very hard for us to even have parking on Salem Avenue, let alone to have 5 extra strangers on Salem Avenue when we got little kids running around and with all these little strangers running around, and who's going to abduct somebody? We don't know. We don't know who these people are. You have people there who are working. That's fine and dandy, but they're also called cracks. What do they call? They call something. But anyhow, you got to excuse me because I'm going through health problems and it affects my brain. But anyway you look at it, I'm not agreeing with this 5-bedroom home to be turned into a group of homes for anybody that wants to live there, and he can go ahead and interview him and do whatever he wishes to do, but he can also go back to Maryland, and they're down here behind my house, and now I got to sit outside and watch him. Now I got to make my dog more vicious than he ain't, because she ain't vicious. I got to make her vicious now, because I got to protect my property. That's not what I want. I love my street, I love my property, and that's why my dog is not vicious, because all the kids and everybody love her. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The consideration, there is a consideration in the codes, and I didn't have enough time to look them all up, but there's a consideration in the code for the safety of the neighborhood, and there's a consideration in the code for the well-being of the neighborhood, and also that she mentioned for parking, but all these considerations are within the code. I don't know what the codes are, but they're there, I'm sure. I mean, I'm not sure, I know they're there. But please consider that when you make your vote. The parking would be outrageous. The changing of the pulse of the neighborhood would be changed, and yeah, what I just said. Okay.
Thank you.
Consider the codes that will be changed.
Thank you. Do you want to sum up your?
There's another.
Yeah.
One more.
Yes, sir.
Good evening once again, Mr. Willoughby. I say this much. Your concerns there are they do not go unnoticed and they do not go unchecked. I had the same concerns too before I got into this business. I say this much. This gentleman who stands before you, I modeled my rooming based on his model. This gentleman raised the game, excuse me, speaking very informal. When I talk about, I know we're used to, I live in New York City as well. I am familiar with it.
Hey, sir, just make sure. Sorry, she's got to hear the.
My humble apologies there. I'm familiar with the situation at hand with the gangs and so forth. However, I'm also familiar with the change that is coming, but we need to give individuals an opportunity to make those changes. I myself, I did not see a person of this persuasion doing what he's doing right now. He set the forefront for myself to adopt a standard, a legal standard that provide affordable accommodations to individuals. We have always, he set the bar, many are soon to follow. I'll say this much. You guys, all the neighbors, are more than welcome to come in and view for yourself what it is that we're trying to do and trying to achieve. We are endeavoring to make the community better at large. I know from my experience too as well. When I first came here as an outsider, it's kind of difficult. Folks don't really want to ruffle their feathers per se. However, being here long enough, I would say this much. Give a person a chance. It's not, we want better, then we have to change and adapt to do better. But excluding someone who is putting up his own finances, his time to help better our community, the least we can do is at least try to meet them halfway. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really liked what he said, and that was very great. I appreciate the fact that you are trying to better the community.
Hold on 1 moment, ma'am.
Sorry, I forgot your name.
Arletta Riviera.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the fact that you are trying to better the community. I have no problem with that. You already have 2 houses. Salem Avenue is not a straight house that the police ride up and down on. They ride up and down on Princess Street. They don't ride up and down on Salem Avenue, so that's not a good street. You can put your house somewhere else, okay? You don't need Salem Avenue to put your house, okay? Like I said, I appreciate everything you're doing. I'm not trying to stop you from doing your work, okay? There's no way that I would ever try to stop you from doing your work except on Salem Avenue, okay? Because I do not like the fact that we're going to have a whole bunch of strangers, not around a whole bunch of strangers coming in and out, and I don't know. But I appreciate what you're doing. I don't take nothing from you. Okay? Thank you.
This is not against his character, not against your character at all or what you're doing. And as far as other gentlemen doing it, check out what Razdeen is doing. Make your money that way. If you want to make money, you check out who Razdeen is. He's doing it, but he's doing what you're doing, but he's moving it outside. He's not doing it in areas where you got a blind street. That is a perfect spot for a drug dealer to set up because the police do not come down that street. Please take consideration of changing our neighborhood. Please.
We've heard everybody's, what they've had to say. We've heard what you had to say. all of those things will be taken into consideration. We have your packet that you have put together, and we have viewed those photos. And now I would say it's the board's turn. If you have any questions, that we can sum this up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Obviously, we could keep going with the discussion for an hour, and I'm not sure that we would be any closer to complete agreement or even more agreement. My feeling is that I appreciate that nobody called names, nobody raised, nobody hollered. I appreciate that. And you're entitled to your real strong feelings about your homes and your neighborhood. And I wouldn't want you any other way. But a few things were said that just weren't very reasonable. Like somebody said something about he can take his house elsewhere. Well, I mean, that I don't know what you meant, but I don't see quite how that would work. And if we approve this, and he offered you his manager's phone number and his phone number, and now you have met each other, and if you want this to work, if we approve it, you need to follow through and walk the walk. You certainly talk the talk, and I think you mean it. I think you're serious. But I see the possibility for this for some families. I've had neighbors who were families, and boy, was I glad to see them leave. I've had renters in the 8-unit apartment house next, one door away from me, who were the best neighbors I've ever had. I just think it's wrong to assume the worst of people because of their station in life. And other comments, please.
I'll try to make it quick. Mr. Wagstaff, you've shown us some properties that you've done. They've been beautiful. And I, for one, trust you completely. We had a similar case come to us a few months ago. We denied it because there were neighbors who showed up. They felt uncomfortable with it. We're getting to the point where the city's getting uncomfortable with rooming houses. And we're also getting to the point where neighbors are coming out and expressing their views on it. I think we need to understand, as folks who are going in to buy a home, that we need to clarify our intentions with those homes before we purchase the home. So my recommendation to you, I completely believe in what you're doing, is to keep this property as it is, show these residents that you are doing what you intend to do, and earn their support for the future. When you purchase new homes, make sure that you go in and get their support beforehand. But I absolutely believe in you and what you're doing.
The pictures that you showed us of your work that you've done, fine work. It is fine work. As you stated, you're not from York. I think what you do need to, I agree with what he was just saying to you about going in prior to buying a home. But I also think, just like this young man testified on your behalf, it's good what you are trying to do. I get that. But not every home you purchase is going to be a home that you can put several people into. When you have people who live in a neighborhood come out and they own their homes and they work in their neighborhood to try to make it better. And I do know for a fact what they were saying is true, that that neighborhood has come a long way, a long way. You have to understand, this might be a home that you just may need to, like he was just saying, put a family in it. That might be just one that you have to try that out. Try that route out. You already have 2 other homes that you've done beautiful work in. You have people living in those and several different people. So you have your hands in that. That's fine. But try taking care of a single family home. And you might find that trying it in a neighborhood like this that is a family-oriented neighborhood, you might get some good tenants too. And you might start to like that route as well. But not every home that a person purchases is going to be one that you can change from a family dwelling to multiple. It may not just be suitable. So you just might want to take that into consideration.
Am I allowed to comment or no? If,
You can comment.
Respectfully, I appreciate what the neighbors had to say. We would never argue because that's not my nature. I wouldn't, they're passionate about how they feel. They should be. When you're buying these properties, you can't literally kind of go in and survey the people who live there. That's not realistic. So you do your research. You want, believe it or not, you want a good neighborhood, because I believe the people who rent these rooms deserve it. They're just as good a person as me or you. They're not all going to be crackheads, drug dealers. That assumption is offensive. I'm not going to, and I'm not even from here, and I wouldn't let somebody, that's not the case. Mm-hmm. It's going to come, as Mr. Williams mentioned, it's going to come down to what you allow to be in your house. Mm-hmm. I've been doing this for years. And I have 10 buildings. I have single family homes. I do it. I have 10 multi-unit. I have 5 multi-unit, and I have 5 single family. So it's not just something where I'm throwing up a bunch of rooming houses. If you take a minute, obviously I'm gonna keep it brief, but if the housing market in this area ballooned. When I bought Princess Street, that was the first property I bought. It was $30,000. Needed tons of work. Salem was trash. Was more than that, but it was lucky to get it at 80. When you put the kind of money in it that you got to put into it to make it livable, this is you can't rent it, but for so much, then it's not worth doing. So when I talked to Mr. Lewis next door, and we stood outside and talked, and I welcomed him to speak to him, he was happy I had the house. He was like, man, that's great, because the house was trash. He told me about how they ran through the house. He said he had to board it up because they were running in and out of the house. It was vacant for a while. He had to literally come himself and board it up because the police, it was crazy. Or he told me that, right? But as I mentioned, you have people who are doing this as a hobby, and then you have folks that are committed. I have full control over who moves in, right? They're not on 1-year leases. It's more difficult to get rid of a family who tears up a house if they got 1 year, right? These are month to month. If it doesn't work on either end, you got to go. That's the good thing about it. You're not locked in. You don't have to stay there. You don't follow the rules. You got to go. So but there's no different. So meaning if I put a single family in the house, if that's how I leave here today, no problem. I don't have a choice. You know, that family moves in because of the size of the house. You're not going to get a mom and two kids. You're going to get a bunch of people. Everything we just talked about. You might get a cousin. You might get an aunt, uncle. You're going to get a bunch of people. Somebody might get high. Somebody might have an issue. It's a single family. You've ended up with the same result. We didn't do any. You know, what did we do? I can only give you my track record. You know, I wish Scott could have came, but
I was looking at also like for your variances as well. I mean,
right.
Like
So
parking is one of the issues.
and I respect that.
Horrible over there.
I respect that. Right now I have 10 rooms. Out of the 10 rooms being the other two properties, out of the 10 rooms, 2 cars. So for whatever reason, these, you know, we're not dealing with. I'm not saying they couldn't have a car. It's possible. I got a 2-car garage out back, but the likely in the over 2 years that I've been doing this, I've literally only had 3 people with cars. You're not going to get 5 people with 5 cars. Like, we're playing out the worst case scenario and everything here. You know, everybody gets high, they're drug dealers, they're gangbangers, they got 5 cars. That's not the case. That's not the case. That's not the case.
For your variance, just on the parking note, I will say 1 car is going to be too many in that neighborhood.
So a single family moves in, mom and dad, they got 2 cars. That means they can't move in?
No, you got a garage, don't you?
Right, but what I'm saying is, it's the same outcome. If it's a single family, to your point, they have 2 cars, they use the garage. It's 5 people who live there. I mean, it's multiple, however many people live. If it's rooms, odds are, from what I've seen, 1 person is going to have a car. Let's say 2. Isn't it the same outcome? It's making it a single family does not automatically mean less crime. The house was trash when I bought it, and it was a single family. It wasn't rooming. So like I said, we're just playing out the worst case scenario. And to Mr. Williams' point, we could do that all night. If, you know, you could have I could put a single family in there that tear the house up, that are terrible. If I don't manage it properly, if I don't screen properly, you still have the same thing. And who I am is the reason why I'm asking you to trust me. Because I'm not some guy who's just flying in occasionally. You know, I'm building roots here. You know, I would think that's a good thing. I don't know.
Any other questions? Any other questions from you?
No,
Okay.
I think we've done about all we can. And
Anybody want to make a motion?
In the case of 10-2024-Z-V at the property on 477 Salem Avenue, I move to approve a variance that the building shall be occupied by the owner as defined in section 1304.02-7.17.B3 at 477 Salem Avenue in the UN2 zoning district.
now, was that a motion to approve
Yes, I said
the
approve.
variance? I'll second it. So it has been moved by Mr. Holman and seconded by Williams to approve the variance to require the owner live at the property. Calling for the vote. Mr. Carden.
I want to clarify, this is to have the owner live at the property.
The ordinance requires that the owner live at the property, and this would grant the variance from the requirement.
All right, nay.
Nay? Mr. Nugent?
Nay.
That was nay. And Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Holman, aye. And Ms. Jenkins?
Nay.
Jenkins, nay. And Williams, aye. So that is voted down 3-2.
It may just, and I don't want to tell the board how to do it, but if there is a question, you may want to move to the ultimate issue first, or next here. If the question comes down to whether or not they're going to permit the rooming house, you might as well take care of that first before you go through the other variances.
Okay, so go to the special exception, is what you're saying.
It's actually, this is the one where it was a mistake. It's actually a variance. The use is the variance.
Okay. So move to approve, continuing on, move to approve a variance to allow a rooming house as defined in section 1304-.02-7.17 at 477 Salem Avenue in the UN2 zoning district. Any seconds?
I'll second it to bring a vote. So it has been moved by Mr. Holman and seconded by Williams to approve the variance to allow the use as a rooming house. Calling for the vote, Mr. Cardin?
Nay.
Cardin, nay. Mr. Nugent?
Nay.
Nugent, nay. Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins?
Nay.
Jenkins, nay. And Williams, aye. So the use variance is voted down by 3-2.
I don't really think that you need to move on to the other.
I'm sorry?
I don't think you need to move on to the others.
Okay. I like your advice, usually. We know. Come on, I'm kidding.
Just to clarify, these two parties are still going to be neighbors, so it'd be great if we can give each other a chance and see if we can come back in. Good deal.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
I think if you guys work together, you can come back, but let's work together.
And another option.
Yeah, here they are.
Another option is that you might be able to flip the house and make 15 or 20,000. That might not have been your first choice, but you don't have to take a bloodbath on this. Ready.
Okay, the next case is case number 11-2024-V-B.
Sorry. He's doing good stuff.
Yeah, and I think it went the right way. I mean, I wanted to get the vote going, so. And there's nothing.
All right, as I said, this case number is 11-2024-V-B. The applicant and owner of the property is York Art Association, having an address of 20 South Marshall Street, West Pennsylvania, 17402. The subject property is located at 591 Lincoln Avenue, which address is located in the RS2 Single Family Attached Residential District, Conservation District of the City of York. The applicant seeks a variance to permit the use of the subject property as a specialized instruction use. The current use of the subject property, I should say the most recent use of the subject property was a house of worship. The application was reviewed by the planning staff of the City of York. Planning staff recommends approval of the requested variance. The case was heard by the City of York Planning Commission on March 11th, and by way of unanimous vote, they recommended approval of the requested variance. The record before the board this evening consists of the application itself, an application narrative, the deed to the subject property, a letter from the zoning office dated November 14, 2023, an aerial view of the property, and several photos of the subject property.
So
Solicitor Harold, thank you for your introductory remarks. That will spare me from having to duplicate. I am intimately acquainted with what hour it is. We will seek to be as expeditious as possible with our testimony. That's why I asked one of our witnesses to accompany me up to the stand. My name is John Wilson. I'm an attorney with the CGA law firm here on behalf of York Art Association. As Solicitor Harold indicated, we've been before the Planning Commission. They recommended approval. We got the zoning department's approval as well. I've had a couple conversations with zoning officer McMillian, and we've been able to discuss the issues. We believe that there's lots of benefit, cultural significance being added through this use variance at 571 Linden Avenue. So without further ado, we'll jump into the testimony this evening. Please state your name and position with York Art Association.
Yes, my name is Roth J. Prep. That's R-O-T-H-J. Last name is P-R-E-A-P. And I'm the Executive Director of the York Art Association.
So go ahead and tell me a little bit about York Art Association. Is it a nonprofit? How long has it been in existence? What do you all do?
Yes, so the York Art Association has been around since 1905. And to put that in historical context, it has been founded since before Oklahoma was a state. We have been around in the York County community for 43% of the time that York County has been in existence as well. So we are a long-standing flagship organization serving the community here. Previously, we served the community throughout York City. We had about 5 locations throughout the time from 1905 to 1970. 1970 is when we built a property out in East York that currently sits at 220 South Marshall Street. And yes, we are a 501c3 organization.
So currently, York Art Association is headquartered out in East York. Why the move?
Yes, so we are being affected by the I-83 expansion project that is taking over our property from the state. They are providing funds for us to find a new location, but we need to be out of that spot by the end of 2025. So we started looking for potential locations in March of 2023 once we received the word, and we landed on the property of the Little Green Church, Linden Avenue, as our new potential home, being that we can provide another space for the community to gather and to experience and develop an interest in the visual arts there.
So one of the things my mother always advised me was make the best of a bad situation. Obviously, York Art Association did not have a choice in this condemnation. PennDOT didn't give you an option. But do you foresee any benefits by moving back into the city with respect to perhaps accessibility for members or square footage requirements?
Yes, so the York Art Association, we are making the best out of this by providing more spaces to help the community and to help the community grow in the visual arts. So we are looking at 2 studio spaces, which are essentially classrooms, and providing education there. Over the last year since I have come on board as the first executive director of the organization, the education program has grown by 20%. With new students taking advantage of that, as well as homeschool students. So we're looking forward to the opportunity to serving the community in that way and serving that age range, but we also serve all adults as well. To put it into perspective, we have over 350 members at the Art Association, where 76% of them come from York County. So a centralized location here in York City was a priority so that we can bring more people in and support people throughout the school district and throughout many different places around the county.
So you referred to this property, 571 Linden Avenue, as the Little Green Church. That was the prior location of Trinity Lutheran Church, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And I believe they've been there since late 1800s?
Yes, so that congregation, the Little Green Church was built in the late 1800s, and that was the first sanctuary space. Later in the 1910s, they built it to be an education space, and so they provided classrooms in the back, Sunday school and other things. That congregation was around for 100 years itself until they closed in 2022.
So I was doing a little bit of browsing on Facebook earlier today, and I saw on the Trinity Lutheran Church Facebook page that they made an announcement that they were ceasing their operations as a house of worship around March of 2022. Is that your understanding?
Yes, that is.
And the property was sold, correct?
Yes, it was sold.
Did the church sell it to York Art Association?
No, the property went up for auction, I believe, in the end, and it was sold to another provider. We became the owner of the property in November of 2023.
And the property the property owner from whom you obtained title, that was a Poplar Springs LLC, correct?
That is correct.
What is your understanding for what the intended use of the property was by the prior purchaser?
Yes, so the intended use of that property was to build it into, I believe, condos or some high-density family residence. So they were looking to build different apartment units as well as to have multifamilies there. We're looking at using that space and preserving it as the Little Green Church and to beautify that area and to provide a different use for it as a community gathering space, the same as the congregation would have used it as.
Am I correct in saying that high-density housing is permitted by right in this zoning district?
Yes, that is correct.
But the proposed use here, specialized instruction, that is not permitted by right or by special exception in this zoning district, correct?
That's correct.
So let's talk about how the facilities would be utilized. So there's a sanctuary space, correct?
Yes, so the sanctuary space is about 2,600 square feet, and it is wrapped in cedar wood. It's absolutely beautiful. The stained glass windows are also ours. We were founded by J. Horace Rudy, and those stained glass windows are original Rudy art glass from the early 1900s. So we're looking to preserve that space and to hold exhibitions which are free to the public, so they can come in to attend. And we use that space to showcase the community and their artwork and their visual work.
There are classrooms as well. How will those classrooms be utilized?
Yes, so the second part of the first floor would have 2 studio classrooms. One would be dedicated around painting and different mediums as such, oil and acrylic, watercolor. We're also looking at a space that is dedicated for youth so that we can provide more opportunities for the youth to connect in our space, either after school programs or other things that have been discussed.
Tell me about York Art Association's hours of operation.
Yes, so currently the York Art Association operates Monday through Friday from 10 to 3, but we provide classes early morning starting about 9 o'clock all the way until 9 p.m. And they're usually provided between 1.5 hours all the way to 3 hours. We have a schedule that's broken down between 6 to 8 week classes provided through that time, so there is different individuals coming and taking a part of that, as well as most of them are the majority of membership. That space will be provided there, as well as a boardroom, which will be provided as a meeting room for other organizations and our staff.
So you're familiar with the traffic that's generated at your current location. Do you anticipate the traffic generation being substantially different with this move into the city?
No, I do not. Currently, our location at Marshall has a parking lot and other opportunities for on-street parking. Our class range per average student is between 5 to 7 currently. So we're not looking to even, with the addition of the 2 classrooms, we don't see that high of an increase for the people who are attending classes.
So in conclusion here, generally speaking, would it be your position that this proposed use would be bringing beautification and cultural significance to this area? And if so, go ahead and shed some light on that.
Yes, I fully believe that the York Art Association moving to this location will be another opportunity to beautify that neighborhood. We're looking to bring over our sculpture garden, which cannot be completely enjoyed because I-83 is right next to it. So it is very loud at that location. But we're looking to bring that over and to provide this space to the community where they can enjoy and where they can come through and see the property and see the sculptures that are there. We're also looking to keep the Little Green Church the Little Green Church. And so preserving that for the community and the neighborhood that's there, since it has been such a staple there as well.
If there are any questions for Mr. Priap, we would welcome them. Otherwise, we'll call our architect who will be providing testimony with respect to parking, traffic, and other impacts of improvement.
Good evening, I'm Brian Ports.
Make sure the cough drop's going to appear in the record, right?
Here's a cough drop.
You have the toughest job here.
Brian Ports, BRIANPORTS, and I am architect with First Capital Design Group.
How long have you been doing this?
I've been in this field for 30 plus years.
Is it your understanding that the property is approximately 0.52 acres in size?
That is correct.
And it has street frontage on 3 sides, correct?
Correct.
That's Linden Avenue, Northwest Street, and Fern Place, correct?
That is correct.
And Fern Place is the street that provides access?
Correct. To the park.
We're located in the R2 zoning district, correct?
That is correct.
And schools and churches are uses that are permitted in this zoning district, correct?
Correct.
Would you compare the proposed use of the property as having similar impacts or perhaps even lesser impacts than schools where you have student traffic, parents dropping them off, or church congregants? Do you expect to have similar or lesser impacts?
I would imagine less impact than a school or a church.
How would you describe the character of the surrounding neighborhood? Is it residential?
Yeah, primary residential on 3 sides, and then on the other side of Linden Avenue, it is corporations, Precision Component Corporation, so industrial.
Go ahead and provide some testimony regarding what the anticipated improvements are of this structure, both internal and external.
Externally, the concept is to maintain and preserve the existing structure. There'll be no additions added. Everything will be accomplished within the space. Improvements would be ADA bathrooms, better ADA access. There is ADA access already, but we're going to increase that. The opportunity would be to put additional parking coming in off of Fern Avenue, which is behind the church, and then allowing for an ADA ramp, which will allow the artists to, they come in with lots of carts with their supplies, allow them that versus off-street to the sidewalk and around. So this would kind of be internalized on the grass area. And then the front side of that would be the sculpture garden, which is facing Linden Avenue.
Would I be correct in saying what you have described does not entail substantial construction work where there will be road closures, heavy construction equipment, loud noise?
Correct. Any work would be done would be inside. The only external would be the parking lot.
So with any variance request, you have variance criteria. For purposes of the board's time this evening, you're familiar with the application narrative that was submitted accompanying our application, correct?
Yes.
And that application narrative provides some responses with respect to those variance criteria, correct?
Correct.
You've reviewed those. Are you prepared to incorporate those into your testimony this evening?
Yes.
And certainly if there are any questions with respect to the variance criteria, we're happy to field questions on them. So let's discuss parking here. Are there currently parking spaces provided for on the property?
Yeah, so there is currently off-street parking, and there is 5 inclusive parking spaces in the rear of the property.
And would there be, in conjunction with this, any additional parking spaces that are provided?
Yeah, we are looking to add approximately 18 additional parking spaces, and then also possible shared access with parking with neighbors, Precision Component Corporation, and their parking lot.
And am I correct in saying there are some sensitivities there with respect to impervious coverage that might limit how many more additional parking spaces could be added?
That's exactly where it is, yeah. We were originally looking, I think, at approximately 20, but we recognize it might be about 18, so we don't exceed the impervious surface without having to get a variance for that as well.
Do you anticipate any increase in street parking when compared to how the property has been utilized previously as a house of worship?
No, I don't.
Opportunity to discuss the proposed use with any of the surrounding neighborhood?
Yes, I had spoken to a couple neighbors, and we also had a petition, not a petition, but a consent agreement from surrounding neighbors who would be in support of this.
And
I think we had approximately 30 to 35 signatures.
And is this document in front of you a true and accurate representation of that signed consent by the adjoining property owners and neighborhood property owners?
Yes, it is.
My apologies in advance. I have 3 copies of this written consent. Would like to move for this admitted into the record. I'll disperse them. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
We can share and give that to.
Mr. Ports, would you concur that this proposed use is in accord with the comprehensive plan of the city?
Yes.
And you would state that the proposed use is suitable and compatible with not only the property, but the surrounding neighborhood, correct?
I would agree, yes.
And adequate utility services would be available and could be provided to this property?
Yes.
All right with me.
Is it your testimony this evening that each of the variance criteria with respect to the proposed use are satisfied?
Yes.
I don't have any further questions for Mr. Ports. If there are any questions, they certainly are prepared to field them, but it would be my respectful request that this board approve the use variance that would allow specialized instruction at this property. Thank you.
I have no questions.
I have one question.
Sure.
Just turn my mic on. If not approved, what would the Art Association do with the building? Since you already bought it with the association.
Well, it had already been, the previous owner was already converting it into the multiple units.
Okay.
So it would actually be more of a transient structure because you would have, renters coming in and leaving versus having an organization that would be there fulfilling a long-term occupation of that space.
I was just thinking, are you gonna,
Yeah.
would you sell it or you would keep it? And
Yeah, I believe at that point in time, if this was not approved, the Art Association would have to go back to the drawing board to decide what to do with the property.
Okay.
And then try to find a new location that can house our organization in the next year and a half.
Right.
Almost taking our organization, out of operation at that time.
Okay.
So.
And we did spend approximately a year looking for properties throughout the area. And we came upon this and it met all the criteria for what we needed to achieve.
Cool. Thank you.
I'm not sure that my friend was serious about that because I can't conceive that we would want that iconic building thrown back at us a third time.
And we'll do right.
Because
I do
when-
remember it happening, it's 2 years ago or something. Yeah, we approved
Yeah,
it for
and
the apartments.
Right.
When it went public that the church had folded and it was up for sale, at our first hearing, nobody showed up, nobody cared, but then it hit the press, and may I mention Facebook? That everybody
don't.
came out of the woodwork and, oh, my parents were married there. My great uncle was buried there. And I thought, well, where were all you people who cared so little, just a few weeks ago?
I had one other question, not for you, but for the audience. Is there anybody here that's for this case, since Mr. Nugent always asks it?
Or against it?
Yeah.
Is anyone here against it? No one here is against it? Okay.
Well, he's raising his hand.
He's raising his hand right there.
Okay.
My name is Michael Walker. I didn't know about all they have their ducks in a row here with the petition and everything. I wasn't aware of that. But I own property in right across the street, on Northwest Street. I just think it was important that I came and voiced my opinion that as a property owner, as an active artist in the York City, that I encourage you to approve this plan. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank
you. Yeah, I can't really picture a better use for it. I mean, this sounds pretty much optimal. So,
Any further questions?
may I make a motion?
You know, the neighborhood, the Avenues Neighborhood Association, I don't think is quite as outspoken or active as they were a few years ago, but they're still there.
Yes.
And if this was, I just told Sina, I saw Marianne Bacchus' name on the petition, and I said, well, if it's all right with Marianne Bacchus, it's all right with me.
Amen, brother. All right.
And if this was offensive, they'd have had a couple of rows filled, so.
I'm with you.
Hit it.
All right, I'll move to approve a variance to allow the conversion of a house of worship into a specialized instruction use as defined in section 1304.01-3.003 at 591 Linden Avenue in the RS2 zoning district.
I second.
It's been moved by Mr. Nugent and seconded by Ms. Jenkins to approve the use variance. Calling for the vote, Mr. Cardin?
Aye.
Cardin, aye. Mr. Nugent?
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins?
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye. Welcome to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and approval.
Doing what you do.
One more. Do we have, is that it, or is? Do we have the people here?
Landon, are you moving forward? You're going? Okay. The applicant is, well, I was gonna say Joe Musso. The applicant is Landon Nace on behalf of the Redevelopment Authority. Having an address at 101 South George Street. The subject property is located at 630 Pine Street, which address is located in MUI1 Mixed Use Residential Institutional Zoning District in the City of York. Applicant seeks a variance to permit up to 24 dwelling units, which exceeds the allowable density set forth in the zoning ordinance by the City of York by 15 dwelling units. The application was reviewed by the planning staff of the City of York, which recommends approval of the requested variance. The case was heard by the City of York Planning Commission on March 11th. By unanimous vote, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the requested variance. The record before the board this evening consists of the application itself, a letter from the Redevelopment Authority, 2 aerial views of the subject property, and 6 pages of site plans and pictures developed by Musso Development.
Is Joe all right?
I will introduce myself first. My name is Blanda Nace. It's Blandanace.
Do you know if?
I don't know.
You don't know, okay.
No, sorry. And I am appearing tonight on behalf of Mr. Musso, and I won't embarrass myself like I tried to do at Planning Commission and do my Joe Musso impersonation. But Monty asked me to start with a couple years of history on this property. No, I'm kidding. No, this is a property which is owned by the Redevelopment Authority of the City of York. I serve as Secretary and Executive Director of the Redevelopment Authority, as well as Chief Opportunity Development Officer for the City of York. Wearing my RDA hat this evening, the Redevelopment Authority has owned this property since September of 2006, when it was an eminent domain taking, and a former, as you may know it as Simon Camera, is a film processing plant. So it was environmentally cleaned by the RDA using a grant back in the day. There used to be a grant called Business in Our Sites that allowed us to clean up contaminated properties. So the property was cleaned, and then it sat like it has been for 16 years or whatever the math is. I came on board about 5 years ago, and of course, with the housing market, everything is picking up. The Redevelopment Authority, I'm proud to say, has exactly one property unaccounted that is not sold right now. Multiple vacant lots, so there's lots of opportunity to build new, but as far as redeveloping a structure. The RDA entered into an agreement, which I believe is part of your packet, with Mr. Stephen Buffington to redevelop this property. And he has already spent upwards of $200,000, put a new roof on the building, which is a critical and important thing to do. So he has invested his money into that. And he just passed last week his tenant occupied inspection for 2 units that he's created on the west end of the property. And you'll see in your drawings, I assume you have the same packet that Monty was nice enough to share with me, because I was across the street with your 2 other YouTube viewers watching this when Nona told me to come over. So the property, as you see on the 11 by 17 plan, does have 2 units at the top of your page, which is the eastern portion of the property. And then what was left of the building, Mr. Buffington cleaned out really well. There was hauled multiple dumpsters of old rotted wood and junk out of the building, and was left with, as you see in your pictures, this really nice steel-framed 2-story garage-ish space, and trying to find a user for the garage, trying to figure out what the proper thing to do in that building is. And I encouraged him myself, well, why don't we look at housing? I know the demand of housing. I listen and watch with the 2 other people on YouTube, Franklin. I watch the meetings, and I attend a lot of the meetings, and I engage with it every day. Housing is in such short supply. So I asked him to take a look at doing this. I said, maybe you should call Joe. And that's exactly what he did. And lo and behold, this property lends itself very nicely to 12 units per floor at about 575 square foot per unit. It's got about a roughly 11 by 11 bedroom, so they're not cramped in there. It's a decent size 1-bedroom unit. We can fit 12 per floor. With 2 stair towers, 1 on either end. Likely the commercial space in the front that's existing will be used as a tenant laundry facility. So they have a washer and dryer or a laundromat on site because the units don't have washers and dryers in them. And the only really thing that doesn't meet is density. Based on the area of the site, the allowable number of units is 9. And this would be, of course, be 24. So seeking the variance to allow a higher density number of units, and that's all I have.
That building has more than 1 floor?
It is 2 stories inside. Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Neighbors excited about the idea of the project?
Mr. Buffington has been talking with the neighbors. The only thing they're not happy about is that they have to now find a new place to park their boat.
That's a hardship.
There is, however, there is a lot of parking on here, and you'll see in the tax map parcels that it also includes that gravel parking lot that is adjacent to the property across the alley as part of this property as well. So he plans on improving that, and he's actually also already been renting spaces there to the 550 Lofts project that was developed years ago for Penn State students, apparently. But they are actually renting some spaces in that lot.
Was there any thought on not going with 24 units, but going down to 15 units and having 2-bedroom places, a little bigger spaces?
I can't speak to the background.
Because obviously 24 units times X amount of rent is better than maybe 16 units.
That's my assumption as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyone here in opposition?
Nope.
Wake up, Blade.
Yeah.
I save the best to last, and everyone leaves.
Any questions? I don't have any questions.
Okay.
I'll do it. Oh, you'll do it? Okay, go ahead.
I was mocking you, sorry.
You want to do it?
No.
It's too late for mine.
Now I feel like you have to do it. Okay, case 13-2024-Z-V at the property at 630 South Pine Street. I move to approve a dimensional variance for multifamily conversion from a different use found in section 1304.01-1.02.002 to include conversion of a commercial building into 24 units. 9 units by right is allowed by this property in the multiple in the MUI1 zoning district, and I've never heard of that one.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Hallman and seconded by Ms. Jenkins to approve the dimensional variance. Calling for the vote. Mr. Cardin.
Aye.
Cardin, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Hallman.
Aye.
Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. Williams, nay. No. Oh, never mind. Williams, aye. Sorry. I'm sorry. That was nasty.
Do you know anything about it? Are they going to make it nicer? Sorry, I guess we're done.
Yeah, that's the adjourn.
Adjourn.